Right. Good evening and welcome to the December 11th, 2023 City Council Roundtable meeting. I am Catherine Ross, Mayor of Snoqualmie, and tonight's meeting is being brought to you live using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. Tonight's recording will be posted on the city's YouTube channel. So welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. City Clerk Dean, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Benson.
Here.
Councilmember Watton.
Here.
Councilmember Holloway. Here. Councilmember Mayhew.
Here.
Councilmember Cotton. Here. Councilmember Christensen. Here. And Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Thank you, City Clerk Dean, and Mayor Ross is here too. And everyone is accounted for, so thank you. We now have our first item of business, which is to approve the agenda. Council may I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So move. Second.
Moved by Councilor Watton and second by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway. Any discussion? And these are just the two items, is oath of office and the community survey for this one. Any comments or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, it passes. And we will start with very special business tonight is the oath of office for the newly elected officials. So pursuant to chapter RCW 35A.12, the Snoqualmie Municipal Code, Chapter 1.08, and the City Council Rules of Procedure, Rule 2.1, Mayor and council members shall be sworn in by City Clerk this evening. So City Clerk will please administer the oath of office to Rob Watton for position number 2, Catherine Cotton for position number 5, and Kara Christensen for position number 6, please.
Okay, so at your desk, you have 2 oaths of office. And as soon as we're done here, if you could please sign both of them. One is for your own records and one is for my records. So if you will please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, say your name.
Watton.
Councilman Cotton. Having been duly elected to the office of City of Snoqualmie City Council position number.
Having been duly elected to the office of the City of Snoqualmie City Council position 2.
Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of my office as prescribed by law to the best of my ability.
Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of my office as prescribed by the law to the best of my ability.
And that I will support and maintain the ordinances, resolutions, and policies of the City of Snoqualmie.
And that I will support and maintain the ordinances, resolutions, and policies of the City of Snoqualmie.
And the laws and Constitution of the State of Washington and of the United States of America.
And the laws and Constitution of the State of Washington and of the United States of America.
Great, congratulations.
Bye-bye.
So should we take a picture? Get a group picture, and if you have any family here that you'd like to take a picture with, we'll also be doing this again in January.
So this is the warm-up.
This is the 2023, and then we have.
Do you want your wife to pin your waterfall on? Oh, cool, you actually won an election.
I know,
right?
It's not illegal. Wasted energy.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Are we supposed to come up too? Oh, I thought it was just a.
I feel like I'm doing this to every meeting now.
How will you know the newbies from the oldies?
Oh, yeah. Should we have the newly elected out front? 3, 4, 1, step on. Right here, do that. Save you a spot.
Family members?
Cutting the cake.
was can't be sworn in. Great job. That's right. Great job. I think you fooled everybody.
Okay. Congratulations. Next is a presentation on the community survey results. Tonight we have Dana McCall and Gail Folkens from our communications department to introduce this item.
Good evening, Council. We're pleased tonight to present the results of our 2023 Snoqualmie Community Survey. We started this process last summer, and over a period of almost 6 months, we're finally in front of you presenting the results. We have our team from POCO online, Jade Arocha and Stephen Vickers, to give you the presentation. This information will be going on the website tomorrow, and we've also planned to do a news release to share it to the community and let them see the results as well. And anything I'm forgetting?
Nope, I think the presentation will go over the highlights, and then we had talked about having questions at the end of the presentation.
So they can get through it. So it's a lot of data to go through. So yeah, and I emailed you out the full results last week. So in case you had questions, you could draft them ahead of time. But from there, I will let Jade take it over.
Good evening. Thanks so much for having me tonight. My name is Jade Arocha, and I am the Director of Survey Research for POCO National Research Center, and I'm pleased to be here to present the results of your 2023 community survey to you all. Can you all hear me okay? I guess I should start there.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. And then before I begin, on behalf of myself and my POCO coworkers, I'd like to give thanks to Dana McCall, Gail Folkens, and Carson Hornsby, who are our primary contacts throughout this process. And I would also like to acknowledge my colleague who's also on the call, Stephen Vickers, who was the project manager for this year's survey. So a little bit about us, though you have surveyed with us before. We've had a little bit of change since your previous survey. So National Research Center, we have been conducting community surveys across the country for over 30 years, and we specialize in benchmarking surveys for local governments. In 2019, National Research Center merged with civic engagement platform POCO, which provides an extra opportunity for you to connect with your residents online before or after you conduct a benchmark survey, such as the National Community Survey. I'll talk more about that toward the end of this presentation. And before I dive into the results, I just wanted to show you here a few different ways in which survey results are most frequently used in local governments to first and foremost monitor trends when you have conducted a survey previously, to measure ratings for government performance and public trust, to inform budgeting and land use and strategic planning decisions, and also to benchmark your results to other communities. The National Community Survey, this is our flagship templatized 5-page community survey. And this survey is structured around what we call 10 facets of community livability. You can see those here displayed on your screen. We've identified these 10 facets as those that are most impactful to residents' quality of life in the communities in which they live. And these 10 facets are, they provide the structure and the format for the report that you have received. And also, these also align typically with city departments, make it easier for staff to quickly find the information that they're looking for within the report. I'm going to get into the methods now before we go into the results. So this was the second time that Snoqualmie has conducted the National Community Survey. The previous survey was done in 2017. The survey this year was conducted from early September to mid-October. And in order to administer the survey, 3,000 randomly selected households received survey invitations during this time frame. The survey invitations consisted of a half-page size postcard that included a web link in order to take the survey online, as well as instructions. And then 1 week later, these 3,000 randomly selected households received a survey packet that included a paper copy of the survey, as well as a postage paid return envelope, and also a cover letter with instructions that also included a web link. So all all invited residents could choose to respond online if they preferred. From those 3,000 households, we received a total of 577 responses for a response rate of 20%, which is actually on the higher end of what we typically see these days for community surveys such as this one. Those 577 responses provide us with a plus or minus 4% margin of error around the results. Our goal in survey research is 5% or less, so 4% gives you an even better level of precision here. And finally, we perform statistical weighting using SPSS in order to make adjustments to the raw data and in order to make it more representative of the community. And we use US Census and American Community Survey data in order to do that weighting process. And then finally, toward the end of the data collection period for the random sample survey, a non-probability open participation survey was also opened up to the community at large. And we received 88 responses to this survey. And these results are reported separately. So they are contained in the report, but the results are for the open participation survey are included toward the end of the report. The majority of the data presented here tonight is based on the results from the random sample data that were collected. Just a snapshot here of our benchmarking database. So this database contains survey data from more than 500 comparison communities across the country. And I will be referring throughout the presentation to comparisons to national benchmarks. So that's what you're seeing here. And then getting now into our overview of survey results. Just a few slides ago, I mentioned those 10 facets of community livability. We ask about those 10 facets in a broad way on the survey in two different questions. The first asks about each of these on a quality scale of excellent, good, fair, poor. So we can see those quality ratings here. Those purple bars signify ratings that were higher than the national benchmark. Those that are that light blue were similar to the benchmarks. And we also ask about these same 10 facets on an importance scale. All of these importance ratings were similar to the national benchmarks. And I'm showing you these quality and importance ratings in order to show you the quality and importance matrix that we also provide in the report. This is just one way to interpret your data, but I would particularly call your attention to the upper right-hand quadrant, which denotes facets which residents have rated both high in quality and high in importance. So these are priority areas where residents feel you are doing quite well. And then also the lower right-hand quadrant, which is areas where, in this case, just one area, economy, where residents have given this a relatively higher rating of importance and a relatively lower quality rating. And when I say relatively, I mean these ratings are in comparisons to the medians for each. So that's what those dashed lines are. These are comparisons to each other's ratings within these facets, not to some objective overall ratings found elsewhere. Going again to our national benchmarks, there are 123 survey items for which we can provide benchmark comparisons. And of those, 73 in Snoqualmie were similar. And by similar, that is within 10 points of the average rating. 47 were higher, which means at least 10 points higher than the average rating. And then 3 were lower than the national average. And then we also are able to provide you with trends over time. So when compared to 2017 results, 85 items in 2023 were rated similarly. 16 were more positive and 16 were less positive. And the threshold for statistically significant change over time when evaluating your trends is 6% for 2017 to 2023. We'll go now into the key findings, and I do always like to emphasize here, these key findings are what stood out to us as survey researchers, but there is a wealth of data in the full body of the report, and we do encourage you to review it thoroughly, as this is really just a high-level overview of the key findings. So first key finding, Snoqualmie residents continue to enjoy an exceptional quality of life. Virtually all residents gave excellent or good ratings to Snoqualmie as a place to raise children and as a place to live. and then at least 92% positively rated overall quality of life, their neighborhood as a place to live, the overall appearance of the city, and the overall image or reputation of the city. All of these items were higher than the national benchmarks. Further, 9 in 10 residents were very or somewhat likely to recommend living in Snoqualmie, and that rating was also higher than the national benchmarks. These ratings were similar to those given in 2017. Key finding number 2, residents highly value the natural environment of Snoqualmie, as well as the parks and recreation opportunities available to them. So ratings for the facets of natural environment and parks and recreation were exceptional, well, with almost all aspects here receiving ratings that surpass national averages. You can see here virtually all residents rated each of these as excellent or good, and only 5% and 4% respectively rated each of these as fair. Looking at more specific aspects of natural environment and parks and recreation, about 9 in 10 residents gave excellent or good ratings to air quality, cleanliness, yard waste pickup, paths and walking trails, city parks, and recycling. And further, 8 in 10 residents gave excellent or good ratings to water resources, preservation of natural areas, Snoqualmie's open space, fitness opportunities, and recreational opportunities. Each and every item on this slide was rated higher than the national benchmark. And then compared to 17, all of these aspects and these ratings did remain stable over time, with the exception of preservation of natural areas, which increased. Key finding number 3, while some ratings have improved, the economy in Snoqualmie remains an area of opportunity. So as I displayed earlier, we saw that economy was in the one aspect that was in the lower right-hand quadrant of that quality and importance matrix. Indicating that residents, 9 in 10 residents rated it as essential or very important. About 3/4 rated this as excellent or good. So while it emerges as a potential area of focus for the city, there are also these arrows on the screen here. I will just point out ahead of time, denote increases over time from 2017 to 2023. The overall economic health of the city, that has improved from 2017 to 2023. Snoqualmie as a place to visit is higher than the national benchmark rating at 85% positive. We also have overall quality of business and service establishments, the vibrancy of the downtown commercial area, and Snoqualmie as a place to work. Each of those were rated positively by between 52% to 68% of residents, and those also improved over time. The only 2 items shown here that were lower than the national benchmarks were shopping opportunities and employment opportunities. There is space on the National Community Survey paper survey in order to include custom questions that are unique to Snoqualmie, and so I'll go over those at this time. The first of those custom questions reads, the city's adopted capital improvement plan includes an expansion of the community center and the addition of a swimming pool that would be funded through one-time sources of capital revenue and grants. Which option below best describes your opinion of the project? 66% of residents indicated that the city should move forward with this project. 21% said the city should not move forward, and then 13% indicated no opinion. Our next special topics question, which of the following best describes how the city of Snoqualmie should balance revenues and expenditures in the next year? So we can see here these questions were asked on scales of strongly and somewhat support and somewhat and strongly oppose. There at the bottom, the most level of support was indicated for the city increasing property taxes to maintain services such as police, EMS, and parks maintenance at current levels. The next most supported item, the city should, at the top here, the city should use a combination of property tax increases and reduce service delivery. And then the least supported item in the center, the city should maintain current property taxes and reduce services such as police, EMS, and parks maintenance. As you can see here, there is majority support for a city property tax increase, albeit a slight majority support, but it is there. Whereas there is a more pronounced level of opposition to reducing services. I do want to point out too, on this question, This question has a slightly different margin of error than the remaining questions, the data in the rest of the report. That is because there was an error in the online version of the survey that was caught about 2 weeks into data collection. It was corrected, but we unfortunately did have to remove the responses that had been collected up until that point. So for this question, because of those removed responses, and also because not all respondents answered this question, we received about 350 responses to each of these, which provides us with a margin of error of 5% around these results, as compared to the 577 total respondents. Okay, that is a summary and a recap of our conclusions. And I won't dive into these at all right now, but these are questions that we like to pose to you to keep in mind as you review the survey results on your own. And I mentioned our online engagement platform earlier. You have ongoing access to that platform in which you can post short form surveys and polls in order to continue to engage with your community. Because online respondents are asked whether they would like to join your panel, Snoqualmie currently has over 200 panel participants that would be notified if you were to post additional content on the platform. I'm happy to take questions at this time.
Thank you, Jade, for the presentation. Counselor, are there any questions or discussion? Anything you're surprised by? Counselor Christensen.
I was surprised at the low importance score for education, arts, and culture. That to me was surprising. I don't know if we have any additional information on why the importance level would have been so low on that, other than that was just.
I can go back to quite a few slides back here. So this one, yes, it is comparatively at the bottom of the list. This does emerge as a sort of hierarchy as these questions are asked on a scale of essential, very important, somewhat important, and not at all important. And you're seeing the combined percentages here of essential and very important. This is a pretty typical, I guess, ranking system that emerges, if you will, when we aggregate these results, with safety and economy almost always emerging at the top. Comparatively, though, if we look at quality ratings for education, culture, and the arts, 62%, which is similar to the benchmarks.
Councilor Watton.
I appreciate having the chance to see 2017 results versus 2023, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Kind of curious, you know, is what is unique for us, and that's our economic development standpoint, and how many of the residents, what their views are of shopping locally versus not shopping locally, and what are the things that we're missing. Is there a way that we can pull on national benchmarks that might be more enlightening for our policies going forward, particularly development of the Ridge versus downtown, and what we can do as policymakers to improve upon that?
Sure. I would say that we can absolutely help craft questions that address and dig deeper into those more granular topics. It's difficult to get into that level of detail on a broad community survey such as this one. So there are just broad factors, as you see here, for economy that are shown. We like to say that surveys tell you what people think, but not why they think it. Certainly shopping opportunities and employment opportunities, especially being lower than national benchmarks, we would recommend as areas to dig deeper. One thing I didn't mention about our platform is we also have a wealth of, it's called the Polko Library. We have a wealth of questions already constructed, many of them related to economic development, downtown redevelopment, such and other topics like that. So really just asking more targeted questions around this topic is what we would recommend.
Excellent. Thank you.
We do have our
Sure.
platform to be able to do that. We are part of their small cities pilot program. So with access to all of this to be able to do that.
Counselor Cotton?
Just a quick question, because I did take the survey, but I don't remember, was there questions regarding, especially with the areas to be improved upon, like the employment and shopping, regarding housing, cost of housing, things like that? Was that part of the information gathered?
Yes, that is in the report. We did not include it here in the presentation as a separate key finding, but we have one of those facets is community design, and it includes the availability of affordable quality housing, variety of housing options, and many other aspects, development, growth, residential growth, business growth. There's quite a few related topics there.
Those are definitely, it's definitely in there. So dig and find that page. And I just wanted to remind you too, now I brought it to your attention about the question that we had to scrub some answers on, and we are going to be able to resurvey that question and add an additional question tacked onto it, send another postcard back out and redo that. And we also have the ability to dig deeper into that topic with the platform that we have for the next 2 years as part of our contract.
Yes, absolutely. That the postcard allows us to invite residents via that random sample, which is a critical part of a scientifically conducted survey. So that is important in terms of re-asking that question that where we lost some responses. The platform does absolutely allow you to engage with the community as a whole. One of the drawbacks there is that it tends to be your most highly involved residents are the ones that are most likely to participate in that survey. However, that can definitely be mitigated with just getting doing as much promotion in as many different places as you can, so you get as many respondents as you can. Another drawback that I definitely don't want to leave out is that with the open participation surveys, we can't guarantee that those respondents live within city limits of Snoqualmie. So we do ask in the survey instructions that they are Snoqualmie residents, but we can't guarantee that like we can with the mailed survey, the random sample.
Did you see much difference between the open participation survey and the random sample that you sent out on the questions?
Good question there. While we do typically do an informal analysis between the two, since we only received 88 responses, with that few of responses to the open participation survey, it tends to just wildly inflate or deflate, if you will, some of those ratings. So I don't want to overinterpret those differences. 88 responses would provide like an 11% margin of error, which just is not a very high level of precision to be able to compare the two. However, the data are there if you would like to compare them. Just want to give you a word of caution there. We typically like to see quite a few more respondents to the open participation survey. The more, the better, in order to be able to make those comparisons.
Okay, thank you. Council, any other questions or comments? Councilor Johnson?
Hey, can you go to the slide that showed the survey of service cuts versus property taxes? That one again.
Mm-hmm. Is this the correct one?
Yeah, I would be wondering if a resident were told, well, it's the park next to your house that we're going to cut. I would wonder how those people would feel about it. Whereas if it's just hypothetically, yeah, someone else's park somewhere else in town, I wonder if if they're more willing to go down that route. And essentially what I'm looking at is the bottom row there. That's a pretty high level of strongly and somewhat support.
Agreed.
A lot of confidence going into the future for balancing our budget.
Yes, definitely important to note that the two items that would certainly influence these results if the questions were asked differently, as you said, location. We certainly see that in other communities that ask questions such as this when we get really specific on the location, and then we look at geographic comparisons on where those residents live, which are included in the online version of the report. I'm sorry, I failed to mention that. The report is also available online in an interactive format in Tableau, and we've provided crosstabs, so cross tabulations by demographics and also by, I believe, geographic area. So with that said, it's with questions like this, if you designate where the location of the new facility will be, yes, that absolutely does impact response. The other is monetary amounts. So once you are able to plug those in and tell folks exactly how much it would cost, that also can really have an impact on responses.
Councillor Mayhew.
Yeah, just to follow up on that last point, when I look at the third row, and then in comparison to the first row, what I see is a substantial majority of the city saying maintain services at current levels, and if you have to increase property taxes, then do that. A substantial majority. And then combined with the first row, I see a majority saying do not reduce services. So you know, don't use services in favor of not increasing property taxes. So it seems to me that this is a very clear message, it seems to me, from our residents saying maintain our services, don't let them go down, and if that means we have to pay more, then okay. So now that's one thing in a survey, it's another when you put it to them in a vote. But I think this is a signal that they would want us to put that to them in a vote. So I think we're going to be talking about this later tonight, but I think this is very helpful information to us as we try to struggle with inflation in our budget and how to deal with that. Absolutely.
Yes, I would agree as well in my experience reviewing questions just like this one. This is indicative of pretty strong support for maintaining service levels, especially if a future question is to be put onto a ballot. We certainly recommend providing as much information as you can on follow-up questions, X percent or X dollars to be allocated for, and then, with as much detail as you can, specific amenities or facilities that the money would go to that can really help you more accurately gauge how voters will respond.
Councillor Brinson.
Well, and another question that I have is after Councilman Mayhew's comments is, I wonder if you have data that would indicate how many people were strongly or somewhat opposed to all three, how many people were strongly or somewhat supportive of all three, and how many people were supportive of one of three. I'd be interested if data like that exists, that would be helpful. Or do we just have a city where 40% support whatever we decide on, 40% oppose whatever we decide on, and it's like baseball. You're gonna lose one out of three games. You're gonna win one out of three games, and it's what you do with that other game that determines whether or not you win the pennant. But I wonder if you have that kind of data.
We have the full data set. We have not conducted that analysis. I was my gears were turning, thinking of how we might do that while you were speaking. We will look into how we might be able to provide that. I understand exactly what you're saying there. And I think that is a really good point, and it would be an interesting point to dig deeper into. So I'll get back to Dana with more information on that.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions or comments? Councillor Johnson.
One other, if you go to the survey question about the community center expansion. There it is. Plus or minus somewhere around 5%. That seems similar to where we were in the survey, and was, I think it's 2019. Support is a little bit lower. I think, than that, but not by a whole lot. So that's interesting that, yeah, the support for the project seems similar
Right.
over the last few years, both pre and post pandemic. This is only one question. That was like 50 questions.
This is very indicative of again, in my experience, strong support. Often we see numbers that are much closer together in terms of support and opposition. This is pretty clear.
Good point. See lots of smiles. Any other comments or questions? We have the expert online still.
I do want to say too that if any further questions come up as you review the report, we are still here to answer those questions going forward. So please do reach out if those come up after today's presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Jade. And also Stephen for your hard work on this, and Dana McCall and Gail Folkens. You guys were persevered and brought us a great community survey. So thank you very much.
And our planning moving forward is to do these every biennium. So we can, we don't want to wait 6 years in between doing this. Track things on a more regular basis. So that's part of the budgeting for our division now. And we look forward to bringing this results to you every couple of years now, posting online for the community to see as well.
Excellent. So no other comments or questions? Councilor Johnson.
I do got one more.
Okay.
If you could go to the one that was sort of a scatter plot with the percentages.
Oh, the quality and importance matrix. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. This one.
Yeah, I would assume that this quality percentage was based on just for that one particular thing for our city. This isn't a comparison of how we were relative to other cities. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes. I did not articulate that particularly well earlier, but that is correct. These are the dashes that you see there are the median quality ratings within Snoqualmie's, the 10 facets of Snoqualmie's facets of livability, and the median importance rating as well. There's no comparison to other communities here.
Okay, just making sure. So, of course, in a perfect world, we'd all be at 100% for everything. This does have a positive correlation between the quality of the services that are being provided and the importance to our citizens. So this shows me that we're tracking with what we're doing in the city with our citizens' interests and desires. So I think that this is a positive graph, a positive slope.
Yes, we agree. That upper right-hand quadrant, again, those are your areas of strength, areas where you're doing well. In other communities where I present, there are little to no aspects in that upper right-hand quadrant and several in the lower right-hand quadrant. So more areas of opportunity. So we agree. These are some, and just overall Snoqualmie's ratings are, we said it in our first key finding, are exceptional in many areas.
One thing on the Mayor, there are two that almost look like outliers that are a little bit low. That's the mobility and the economy. The mobility, that's a little bit harder to deal with. We can't turn Douglas into a 4-lane highway to get cars moving faster. And it's really hard to get the transportation from area out here that many of our citizens have come and told us that they want. It's a lot more difficult, I think, for us to tackle that as just our council trying to pass ordinances, create new services and stuff. Now, there's nothing, but it just seems more challenging. But for the economy one, I do think that we've got a few ideas that are currently being worked on in the community development committee and department to try to address some of those concerns, especially with regard to downtown retail and center. So hopefully we can tick that one up a little bit more in the future.
Right.
That's an excellent point. You know, there are, I'm sure some items on the survey over which you may have little control. There are counties actually nationwide that also conduct the same survey, and many of the items on the survey aren't necessarily provided by the county. Where that can be useful though is sharing this information with your with other partner organizations, with other stakeholders that might be interested in that data. For example, local transportation department, anything of that nature can be useful to share this data with, even if you can't yourself make changes to some of those aspects.
I agree. So I actually sit on the Regional Transit Committee, which is basically Metro. And so I will share that information with them regarding mobility and transit. So
Perfect.
any other questions or comments? Okay. We ready? There being no further business, are we ready to adjourn the roundtable meeting?
So moved.
Okay.
Moved by Councilor Watton and second by Councilor Cotton. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, we are adjourned at 6:41 PM and we will re-adjourn. Join the meeting, regular council meeting starting at 7 PM. So thank you. Good evening. This is council. This brings us to a regular meeting of the city council. We just had a roundtable and there we actually did the oath of office for our newly elected council members. At the roundtable, Councilmember Watton, Councilor Christensen, and welcome to our new Councilmember Cotton. Please let the record show that all council are present. So council, please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And Councilor Benson, would you please lead?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We now move to our first item, regular business is to approve the agenda. Let's may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Johnson. Is there any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
Two items. Under appointments, after the appointment confirmation of finance director, would like to add an agenda item for confirmation oath of office for fire chief.
Second.
That would be agenda bill, I'm sorry, agenda bill 23-147. May I have a second?
Second. Great. So motion by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Christensen to add agenda bill 23-147, fire chief confirmation and oath of office. Councilor, is there any discussion? Councilor Mayhew?
Yeah, can remove agenda bill 23-146 from the consent agenda, please.
And remove. Maybe,
That doesn't require,
oh yeah, you don't need a vote.
I don't want to combine those two things.
No. So let's vote on the adding, the motion, adding the agenda bill for the fire chief. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Right, that is unanimous. And you can pull, council can pull off anything from the consent agenda. So we'll pull off AB 23-146. And Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
I would also like to pull off agenda bill 23-138 lodging tax allocations and move that to F&A.
Right, so move that to F&A.
May I
Okay,
have a second?
we don't need a second for
Oh,
that.
that's
We
right,
just
never
want-
mind.
I'm going to second it because I want everybody to know I approve.
All right. Okay, so any, Councilmember Mayhew?
Point of order, I think under our council rules of procedure, the items pulled off consent agenda have to be taken immediately following the consent agenda.
Yes, generally they do, unless you
Seconded.
stay where you like those to go. Councilmember Mayhew?
Move to hear Agenda Bill 23-130. We have to set aside, never mind.
Let's do LTAC right after consent agenda. I
Okay,
got
we-
no objections.
That sounds good. Okay, anything else on the agenda? Okay, all those in favor with the changes with adding the fire chief, agenda bill, and removing AB 23-138 and 146 from the consent agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right. So the agenda is now approved with those changes. So first of all, we have a public hearing. Tonight, we will have a public hearing regarding AB 23-141, utility fiscal health and rate study. And we do have the sign-up sheet. And I will open the public hearing at 7:04 PM. In this proceeding, the community is invited to provide comments regarding the proposal to adopt ordinance 1284, amending the city of Snoqualmie utility rates for 2024. Those wishing to speak during public comment must sign up, and speakers must be called on in order according to the sign-up sheet. For anyone online attendees, please raise your hand if you're wishing to public comments. Your name in-person sign-up sheet. Also, I'll alternate speakers by calling on one person from in-person sign-up and one online. Please state your name and city of residence for record. Direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. Please note that this is not a time to ask questions of the council, mayor, or staff, or to engage in debate. The council will quietly and respectfully listen to your comments. You will have 3 minutes. When you have 30 seconds left, you will see a yellow flashing light. And if online, we will advise you that 30 seconds is remaining. So with that, is there anyone within the chambers? I see one person signing up. Right up here. And if so, come forward and tell your name and city of residence, please. And you have 3 minutes. So right there, yes.
Thank you. My name is Elaine Armstrong and I live in Snoqualmie, Washington, up on the ridge. Okay, got a timer and everything. So it's my dearest wish that the mayor and the city council of this beautiful city to become really responsive to the citizens of this city and rate hikes. I don't know what's proposed exactly, but I'm concerned that our city utility rates increase every single year. And I pay more than double what I did when I first moved here. So these increases put a great burden on many, many people who live here. I don't know who can afford $200 a month for, or even more, 250, 270 a month for utility bills. But they put a great burden on those with limited or fixed incomes, such as myself. And I know the city has borrowed dozens of millions of dollars in order to improve the facilities that we have here. But my concern is that our government is overreaching the needs and capacity of its citizens to support the ambitious projects the city is planning. We're only 14,000, I believe, households here. So I feel the citizens of the city should be supported first and foremost. And sometimes I'm concerned that the needs of the developers are uppermost in to gain support from our city. In addition, a previous rate study found that multifamily dwellings are charged disproportionately high for sewage compared to their impact and demand on the sewage treatment system. Now, this is true while high commercial companies are charged far less than the demand their operations make on sewage treatment. While commercial enterprises can pass along such higher costs to their customers and therefore be held harmless by appropriate charging, We who live in multifamily dwellings have no such recourse and must somehow come up with the money out of our static incomes to meet these ever-rising charges we cannot avoid. So please reconsider how crippling these consistent increases are on each of us. I urge the council to make the residents of this beautiful city their priority, to support and serve and to treat us fairly. Please do not increase our utilities. Find a way to conserve your spending. Charge those who use the systems more in a fair way, and consider your electorate, your residents, and us as a central focus of your very best efforts to protect and serve. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Great, thank you. Is there anybody online that would like to speak during public hearing regarding the utilities? If so, I guess hit *9 to raise your hand. See anyone online? Anyone else within City Hall that would like to speak to utility rates? All right, I'm not seeing anyone else. So with that, we have come to the end of the list of speakers. Those who wish to speak have had the opportunity to speak. And I declare the public hearing on utility fiscal health and rate study adjustment closed at 7:09 p.m. Thank you. Thank you. Now we move on to some fun things. We have AB 23-144, Finance Director Confirmation and Oath of Office. I'm asking our council for confirmation of Andrew Boutte as a Finance Director effective December 19th, 2023. Drew holds a Master's of Public Administration degree as well as a bachelor's degree in Political Science and Sociology and Accounting. He has over 6 years experience in municipal finance and has experience with biennial budget development and adoption, coordinating the creation of a capital improvement plan, facilitating issuance and competitive sale revenue bond, and participating in the successful passing of a property tax levy lid lift and transportation sales tax increase. He was the city's budget manager until August 2023. Confirm Andrew Boutte as the Finance Director effective December 19th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Mayhew and second by Councilor Johnson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those.
I've got something.
Oh, Councilor Benson.
So as I understand, he's been off in another city. Are we sure that he can translate those skills to the city of Snoqualmie? Is he available for comment?
After?
He will be after the office.
Well, but
We have.
so we just take it on faith then.
Councilor Johnson.
I thought that it was very nice to see a familiar face when I came in this evening.
All right. Well, if Joe knows this guy, then all right.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
So I guess I don't want a wrong impression for those who may be online. There was a candidate search and several sets of interviews. Drew applied as a result of job posting. We went through the interviews and he came out head and shoulders above the rest. And that's why we have him here and why those who participated the staff participated, but only a couple of council members can participate just because of public hearing issues. We participated, did the interviews, and again, he was head and shoulders above the rest. And that's why we're asking for confirmation of him tonight as a director.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, I just want to make comment also to ensure that folks understand how tongue-in-cheek the comments were. I happen to know that council member is a huge fan of this applicant. So actually, we all know that. But I did just want to amplify, the mayor made some comments about the skills and experience that Mr. Boutte has. And I just want to mention, for those that don't know this, Snoqualmie is a much more complex city than almost any city around us. We are a full service city. We run our own utilities water, sewer, and wastewater. All of it. We do. The city does that. We have our own police department. We have our own fire department. We don't contract these things out to regional authorities. All of that is accounted for. It's huge accounting demands. It's huge demands of all types on our city, but the accounting to support all of that is very complex. It's not for those of you who don't know, I'm an accountant. It's not a little bit more complex. It's a lot more complex. Having someone with the 6 years of experience that he has here at Snoqualmie, that's experience you're going to be very hard pressed to get at other cities in our area. So we're particularly fortunate to have Mr. Boutte come back to us, and just what a fantastic candidate. And I just wanted to say that just for those that weren't quite clear that how tongue in cheek the other comments were.
listening.
All right, I relent.
And as a city, after confirmation, we are delighted that he is returning and to be able to jump right in and do amazing things, just as he was before he left. So anyway, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? That's unanimous. Congratulations, Director of Finance. And- Testing, okay. All right, so and then say your name. Having been duly appointed to the Office of Finance Director of the City of Snoqualmie, Washington.
Having been duly appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council of the city of Snoqualmie, Washington.
Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of my office as prescribed by law and to the best of my ability.
Solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of my office as prescribed by law to the best of my ability.
And that I will support and maintain the ordinances of the City of Snoqualmie
That I will support the ordinances of the city of Snoqualmie
and the laws and Constitution of the State of Washington and of the United States of America.
and the laws and constitution of the state of Washington and the United States.
Congratulations. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you. All right, thank you very much, council, for this honor. It's a pleasure to come back here. Snoqualmie is home to me. I started here as an intern about 8 years ago. Been promoted numerous times across the city, and it's been a joy to work with all of you during my time up here in front of you at this podium. My goal is to serve everyone here faithfully as much as I possibly can to help really build a robust finance department that can focus on really 3 key values: sustainability, transparency. I want to make sure that we protect the continuity of city services over time. And so that is my goal, my objective here. This position is to make sure that we can continue to accomplish that as a city moving forward. I know that there's some immediate issues that we have to work on. For example, the ERP project. We've got a wonderful budget manager back here, Jana, that's going to be presenting on city revenue options later. Looking forward to these conversations continuing into the next year, and I'm sure we can do great things together. So it's an honor to come back here. You know, I've only been gone for 4 months, but I really miss you guys. Even you. Yeah. No, so,
It feels
thank
like
you,
a lot
Councilmember
longer.
Benson. Yeah, it
4
certainly
months.
does. It does for me as well. But this is really home to me. And so thank you for everything that you've done for me. And hopefully I'll be able to reciprocate that in this position. Thank you.
Just so you know, we knew it was your home a long time ago.
All right. This brings us to AB 23-147, Fire Chief Confirmation and Oath of Office. So I'm requesting council confirmation of Michael Bailey as the next Fire Chief for the City of Snoqualmie Fire Department effective December 12th, 2023. Mike Bailey has been a member of the Snoqualmie Fire Department for nearly 25 years, previously serving as Deputy Chief, Fire Chief, as well as 2 terms as interim Fire Chief in 2021 and 2023. He brings over 30 years of firefighting experience. He holds a bachelor in political science. This is on public administration from the Washington State University. He is an executive National Fire Academy, a graduate of both the University of Washington Academy and the FEMA National Emergency Management Academy. Has experience in fire operations, staff development, budget management, and policy development. Currently, Mike is leading the re-accreditation of our fire department. Council may have a motion to confirm Michael Bailey as the fire chief effective December 12th.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Councilmember Christensen and second by Councilmember Watton. Is there any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
Again, to restate before we get into other comments, again, there was a job posting, applications came in, there was an executive search. We interviewed several people in regards to this. Again, Fire Chief Bailey was the best candidate, and so that's why we're here. Again, he was also head and shoulders above the competition as we went through it. So just so nobody thinks I don't know how you said that, whatever, but he's the best guy for the job and we should do it.
I strongly agree. Council, any other comments? Seeing it, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? It's unanimous and congratulations.
Oh, you tried with the glasses.
Oath of office. So I say your name.
I, Michael Bailey,
Have been duly appointed to the office of Fire Chief of the City of Snoqualmie, Washington.
have been duly appointed to the office of Fire Chief by the City of Snoqualmie.
Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of my office as prescribed by the law to the best of my ability.
I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of my office as prescribed by law to the best of my abilities,
And that I will support and maintain the ordinances of the City of Snoqualmie
and that I will support and maintain the ordinances of the City of Snoqualmie
and the laws and Constitution of the State of Washington and of the United States of America.
and the laws and Constitution of the State of Washington and the United States of America.
Congratulations. Yay.
Just
just real quick, want to thank the council for this opportunity. It's been a goal of mine for quite a while. I've grown up in this department, and I'm really looking forward to the future we have and being able to lead the fine men and women of this department. And I just want to say that we'll be back here in January. We're going to do it right in January with a little bit of a badge pinning and the family being here. So I'll save the rest of the comments for then, but I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate everybody's support. Thank you.
Next item of business this evening is AB 23-145, Commission and Committee appointments and reappointments. The purpose of this agenda bill is to confirm these appointments. So UG Miller has applied to fill the vacant position number 7 seat on the Arts Commission. She's lived in the city for 17 years, is a local artist, and has participated in the Off the Rail event, as well as fundraising events for the Pacific Bonsai Museum. She will make a great addition to the Arts Commission. Steve Pennington is a current member of the Arts Commission and wishes to continue his service. Adrian Webb has applied to fill position number 4 on Economic Development Commission. Adrian has lived in the city for 5 years and operates a business within the Snoqualmie business community. He has extensive leadership experience and is very involved in the community. He will make a great addition to the Economic Development Commission. Mandeep Walia has applied to fill the vacant position number 1 on the Services Advisory Committee. Dr. Walia has been for 8 years, is a medical director for a Medicaid program for low-income elderly, and has extensive local volunteer experience working with the homeless population and those dealing with substance abuse and behavioral health issues. She will make a great addition to the Human Services Advisory Committee. Lori Hay, Richard Anderson, and Kelly Coughlin are current members of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee and also wish to continue their service. And Ashley Kilcup, Andre Testman, and Michael Crone are current members of the Planning Commission and also wish to continue their service. Council may have a motion to confirm and appoint or reappoint to the commissions as stated.
So moved. Second.
So it's moved by Councilor Watton and Councilor Christensen. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? So it's unanimous. All those appointments or reappointments are approved. And we do have several commissioners that are online. If you wish to say a few words, you're welcome to. Please raise your hand. I think *9. Seeing none. Thank you, everyone that signed up to serve. We really appreciate your volunteering for these. The next thing is a presentation. This evening is AWC Advanced Certificate of Municipal Leadership. So tonight we have Amy Ocklander, who's the AWC board member and also City of Duval Mayor, to speak regarding this award.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me here this evening. As the Vice President of the Association of Washington Cities, it's absolutely an honor to be here to present the award of Advanced Certificate of Municipal Leadership to Mayor Catherine Ross. In short, Association of Washington Cities, for those in the audience that aren't aware, represents all 281 cities in Washington State. We build connections between our state's diverse cities and towns while providing our members with the support needed to thrive through delivery of data-driven education and being nationally recognized pooling programs and our nonpartisan advocacy. The AWC Certificate of Municipal Leadership Program recognizes mayors and council members for accomplishing training by earning at least 30 credits and attending one workshop in each of the 5 competency areas: roles, responsibilities, and legal requirements, public sector resource management, community planning and development, effective local leadership, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and belonging. To obtain the Advanced Certificate of Municipal Leadership acknowledges the continued commitment to education and community service through additional training and leadership roles. This includes earning a total of 60 credits and attending at least one workshop in each of the 5 competency areas, and as well as demonstrating community service outside of the Association of Washington Cities programs. Mayor Ross has, in addition to her service here at the city of Snoqualmie, has served as a board member of Encompass, which is a nonprofit that partners with families in the Snoqualmie Valley, Issaquah, and East Side communities to build healthy foundations for children of all abilities. Mayor Ross, it is definitely my honor to be here with you tonight and encourage each one of you as elected officials to do the same, achieve your municipal leadership certificate, as well as continue on to your advanced certificate. The knowledge that you gain, the relationships that you build, and the increased good that you do for your city with that knowledge and that experience and the connections you build is invaluable, not just in time, but to your community as a whole. So Mayor Ross, congratulations. Yes.
Thank you for coming up, presenting it. And all the different classes I've taken have been invaluable. And again, I would recommend highly council members being involved. There's a lot of online things as well as you can attend different things. And I always find it very valuable to meet with other mayors, other council members. You always learn about what's going on in their cities. So thank you very much. All right, next presentation is service recognition. So tonight we are honoring Councilmember James Mayhew for his service to this community with a service recognition award. Councilmember Mayhew has been a council member since 2017, first appointed and then elected in 2019. He has served the community through his leadership, dedication, and financial expertise. On behalf of the residents of Snoqualmie, we thank you for your service. Award presentation.
You get your picture taken too.
Yeah. Sorry.
I think we should all stand. You do.
Won't even use the Greek light thing.
Exactly.
You're gonna go straight to red.
No, I'll just say thank you very much for this award and serving these last 6 years, serving this residents of Snoqualmie has been a particular honor. It's very rewarding to be able to take things that you've done in your life and then give back to your community with that. Serving on a city council or any of the commissions or committees that our residents serve on is just it's a wonderful way of serving our community and giving back, and to have the opportunity to do that and then to be elected to do that by your fellow residents is just a particular vote of confidence, and it's very deeply rewarding, and it's been rewarding. I'd encourage anyone who hasn't done this to do so. It's It's a great experience and a great opportunity to give back. And thank you all. I've enjoyed working with you.
Great. All right. At this time, we will provide time for residents to comment on items that are not on the agenda. First, a few ground rules. Snoqualmie residents who are not present have a right to have their elected representatives perform their duties on behalf of the city in an efficient and orderly manner. So comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Please wait to be recognized and state your name and city of residence. Direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. Please note this is not a time to ask questions of the council, mayor, or staff, or to engage in debate. The council will quietly and respectfully listen to your concerns. Please comment during this portion of the meeting shall be limited to topics concerning current, future, or requested city projects, actions, programs, plans, and regulations. Comments not pertaining to these subject matters are not germane and may result in your comments being suspended. And last, please respect the decorum of these proceedings, as all due respect will be afforded to you. So with that, is there anyone that would like to speak to any concern that is not on the agenda tonight? So please raise your hand in city council chambers or *9 online. Great. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone raising their hands. So now public comment is closed and we move on to the consent agenda. And so there are 2 items remaining on the consent agenda. One is to approve the council meeting minutes dated November 27th, 2023, and approve the claims report dated December 11th, 2023. Council, may I have a motion to approve those 2 items on the consent agenda?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Watton. Is there any public comment regarding these 2 items? Seeing none. Council, you have any discussion? Okay, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? So the consent agenda passes unanimously. Now we move on to AB 23-2024 lodging tax allocations. Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, would you like to read the motion, the summary and motion?
Lodging Tax Advisory Committee is responsible for requesting, receiving, and evaluating applications requesting funds for tourism-related programs in Snoqualmie, determining eligibility of applicants and providing a recommendation of hotel motel tax allocation to the city council. Move to approve Lodging Tax Advisory 2024 funding recommendations.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Mayhew. Is there any public comment regarding that item? So please raise your hand. I'm not seeing anyone online or in council chambers. Okay, any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
Okay, if you look in your agenda package, you'll see a memo of the recommendations. Actually, just late last week, we were advised there was an applicant who was not considered. We're still tracking down how that happened, was not considered. And that was Meadowbrook Farm Preservation Association has requested $4,500 for a farm park flyer generation, which falls within the scope of what we would use LTAC for. I'll make a proposal here that we had about $1,200 in which we in essence over allocated. Thinking that the Christmas lights and also Snoqualmie days were good applications for those additional funds, and they could make use of those additional funds, which after we did all the other evaluations, we had not allocated yet. So what I would like to propose tonight is that we take, if you look at your memo, We take the city of Snoqualmie Winter Lights back to its request of $18,000. And we take the Northwest Railroad Museum Snoqualmie Days back to the request of $7,000. And we allocate that $1,200 to Meadowbrook Farm Preservation Association to help them with their flyer. There may come back with some other adjustments, but I at least want the LTAC committee to review the application before going any further than that $1,200.
Is it your motion?
That's a yes. So move to make those allocation changes, and I will present the draft of a memo to the city clerk post our vote.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councillor Cotton, second by Councillor Cotton. Is there any public comment regarding this item? Nothing. Okay, any discussion? So Councillor Mayhew and then Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, my understanding is that legally, the council does not have the ability to change these allocations, that by law, only the committee can make these recommendations. We have a take it or leave it option. That's what we've always been told in prior years. So I'm worried that what we have to do here, if we want to have these changed, is actually refer it back to the LTAC for a revised recommendation. Is that not the case?
I believe that's correct, but I wasn't prepared for that question, so I'm sorry if I can't answer definitively, but I believe you're right about that. So.
Right. In that case, I'm not going to propose make a motion that is illegal. I'll withdraw a motion, and if allowed, substitute a motion, basically table this back to LTAC.
Second that.
No.
So is that
Point of order.
Yeah.
The seconder has to withdraw as well. Is that correct?
I don't,
Councillor
is that right?
Councillor Cotton would have to withdraw her second.
Point of order. I've been told numerous times that we can't withdraw motions once it's on the table. Like, period. So what Councilmember Holloway had just said was motion to was it table? Is that what you said, or refer back to committee?
Table the agenda bill back to committee.
Okay, so I'd second that.
Withdraw it.
You couldn't just let it die without a
So we
second.
can, I guess, we have been able to withdraw motions before. We have been able to withdraw motions before.
Yes, you can. I'm sorry, in the past,
So
we
you-
have with motion and second withdrawn, we've taken them off the table.
Yes, we have.
Several more motions.
All right, I can withdraw the second.
Okay, so we're pulling this off, that motion off the table. Now we're back to Councillor Johnson.
I'll just make the motion that's just made.
Okay.
Motion to refer back to committee.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Second.
moved by Councillor Johnson and second by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway to refer back to committee. Councillor Vincent,
Yeah, it appears from this list that there are a number of things that were requested and were not, no funding was offered. So my guess is the committee put thought into where they were putting the funds. So if we want Meadowbrook to be considered, let's have them consider it. That'd be my suggestion.
Mayor, can I offer a legal clarification on the LTAC?
yes,
Um,
City Attorney Lanhat.
Thank you. So I just did a quick verification. So Councilmember Mayhew, your point was partially correct. The council can decide not to allocate funds to a particular recommendation, but it can't add new recommendations.
Uh-huh.
That's the limitation on your authority.
Thank you.
That's what we're doing. Councillor Johnson, then Councillor Christensen.
Just to Councilmember Benson's point, I think that some of these things would be public spending toward a private entity, which is noted down below, which it sounded like is maybe a no-no. So that might be some of them, but that doesn't explain perhaps all of them. So
So-
I might address that point.
You'll see asterisks on those that are zeroed out and footnotes at the bottom explaining each one. And yes, majority were private entities, not charitable organizations. And that is felt to be inappropriate.
Counselor Christensen?
I was just gonna say that even if it was within our rules to go ahead and change the numbers at this point, not having seen or been a part of any of the other conversations, I didn't think that it was necessarily appropriate for us to be fiddling with the numbers here. Since this wasn't, it was handled at a committee that at least I was not present for the discussions on it, didn't have any materials for, so my preference is to send it back until we can get a full package anyway.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so the motion on the table is to refer this back to committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? So it passes, and this would go back to committee. Okay. Next item, AB 23-146, Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance Memorandum of Understanding. This be under community development. Councilor Johnson, would you please read the introduction and motion?
This is for the, I'm sorry, which one?
AB 23-146.
Thank you. All right. The city of Snoqualmie would like to join with Snoqualmie Valley Cities, the Snoqualmie Tribe and King County Department of Local Services in promoting and coordinating the community's economic development efforts in a Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance. See Exhibit 1, Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance. Move to approve the MOU and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
By Councilor Johnson and second by Councilor Watton for the AB 23-146. Is there any public comment regarding this item? Yep. No, there you go. Just state your name and city of residence.
Hi, my name is David Bosland. I'm an attorney. I live in North Bend. I'd like to just make a few comments in favor of the Economic Alliance. My perspective is as a member of the Snow Valley Innovation Center, with which I've been a part of for some time now, and I'm currently on the board. And we've had some great success since COVID lightened up and allowed us to really get back together again, helping entrepreneurs and startups, smaller businesses that are trying to grow and increase our economic capacity here in the Valley. We do an Innovation Friday meeting every week, and roughly once a month we do a business workshop. And we've been able to answer a lot of questions in that we have people in a number of different capacities, legal for myself, but quite a few other capacities. And so we do get a lot of traction. I'm very excited about the possibility that the Economic Alliance has to help us grow and foment that. So those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else in City Hall or online? Raise your hand. Okay. Okay. Council, we have any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
Procedural question. I do not remember this agenda bill as being discussed in F&A as part of the approved council agenda moving forward.
We did talk about it because we pointed out that it had gone through CD, and Councilor Mayhew confirmed that it had been there and was approved to move forward at the next meeting, and didn't make it on the next meeting. That's why we added it to this meeting. And it was discussed and it was approved to go on during F&A.
Okay.
Councilor Mayhew.
Mayor, thanks for that reminder. I was the one that asked for this to come off the consent agenda, and it was simply because my notes from F&A, I just hadn't made a note that we had talked about this. With that reminder, Mayor, I do remember that. So I apologize for making a little extra work for us tonight. I think this has been discussed at Community Development Committee previously, and so my concern was more procedural. And so with that, unless someone has a question, I don't have any objection to us moving to a vote.
Councilor Christensen.
Just as a quick point of clarification, the agreement that we're being asked to approve, because there were two different versions that were on the document, I'm assuming that we're going with the one that immediately follows the agenda bill as opposed to the one that was attached to the prior letter, correct? sorry, let me restate it. So there were two different versions that were attached to the agenda bill. I believe that one was an attachment to Ms. Harrison's letter.
Correct.
And so we're going with the version of the agreement that has a sunset date of December 2026.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Mayhew?
Yeah, just to clarify, which version was discussed at Community Development Committee? And although if there's no substantive difference between the two, then I don't mind, but I just want to make sure if there's any change to what was discussed at committee that we just highlight any substantive difference that we highlight that now.
No substantive changes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Any other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And seeing none, the Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance Memorandum of Understanding is approved. So thank you. Moving on, first ordinance of the evening is AB 23-141, Utility Fiscal Health and Rate Study Adjustment. This is the second reading of ordinance 1284. Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, would you please read the summary and motion?
Purpose of the ordinance 1284 is to amend the city utility rates for the year of 2024. The recommended rate changes are intended to reduce the negative financial impact of increased inflation to city utilities. The recommended rate changes are based on a 2024 fiscal health review conducted by the FCS Group. Motion to approve ordinance 1282, amending City of Snoqualmie utility rates for the year 2024 on December 11th, 2023. May I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Mayhew, to approve the AB 23-141 Utility Fiscal Health and Rate Study Adjustment. Is there any public comment? We did just finish a public hearing. Is there anyone in City Hall or online? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. Council, any discussion? Councilor Watton?
Well, I deeply appreciate the comments of the resident that spoke earlier tonight. I'm mindful and sensitive to these rate adjustments that we make. I think it's important to point out that this is an interim break, that we will be back for a full study, is my understanding. And we'll have more information, but this is simply to help make sure that we bridge the gap between now and then. And we've had COVID in between that has kind of thrown a monkey wrench in the whole deal. So her comments were well put. And I think it's something that, at least I am mindful about, but I'm in support of the adjustment just out of financial prudence.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
So having been through these rate changes a couple of times, this is not hard science. There are some assumptions that are generated into this to facilitate the calculations which come out into this. Okay. We've taken a cursory glance and said, yeah, rates need to go up. I'm still proposing at this stage that we don't take the full jump, but we take a half jump between what the rate currently is and what the rate proposed in here is, until we can actually go reaffirm those assumptions, look at that future growth that we have planned out and whether it needs to come in at the rate it was coming in, and do that rate analysis as soon as we can in 2024 for where we really truly need to be. So, but I'm not going to make a motion. You guys voted me down last time. I just wanted to say that. I'm not going to rehash a row.
Councilor Benson.
When we were talking about this before, the sense that I was getting is that these suggested rate increases don't appear that they're going to be exorbitant compared to the increases in our costs that we're going to be facing. So the sense that I got was that if we don't increase at these current rates, then there's going to be a bigger jump later on, which is going to be a kick in the teeth as well. So it seemed to me like what we were looking at is spreading out the kicks in the teeth in a more or a less painful way over a longer period of time, rather than taking a full boot all at once. That was the sense that I got. If I misread that conversation and that analysis, I would love to hear how I misheard it from anyone at all, anyone who wants to raise his hand and share it.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
Okay, so one of the main driving factors in the rate increase here and symptom of pandemic, that growth has not come on as fast as we thought it was going to. So you'll see the GFCs, general facility charge, as you hook up, is behind what we originally had scheduled. So growth is not happening. That income for hookup is not happening. It's having an impact on what we're doing, in addition to inflation. In no way, shape, or form do I think the next rate study is going to come back and say, no, don't do any rate increases. You're doing fine. There will be more likely, as a result of that, a rate increase, okay, just to keep up with inflation as it goes on, okay? But again, as this is a issue of the growth not coming on, I'd rather we do that hard study of the growth, the capital that we had planned in support of that growth. What is a more appropriate schedule for it? And what does that schedule drive as far as the rates? Okay, this merely did not do that. That's a pretty extensive analysis to go do. Okay, this study didn't do that. The rate study to come will do that. So I don't know how big the next rate's going to be until we do that rate study.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, so in addition to the comments that were just made, which focused on the revenue side for our utilities. So how much revenue is coming in, the fact that some of the revenue, fair amount of revenue that we counted on didn't come in. What's even more significant in my view is what's happened to the cost side. So we know that our rates, let me just point something out because this is very important to understand. I have tremendous concern for those in our city who are on fixed incomes, who this hits them. But the costs, the rates that we're charging primarily go to pay, not primarily, they solely go to pay our costs. Remember, our utilities are a completely self-sufficient operation. No money goes to the rest of the city's operations. They operate over the long term at cost. So a 3%, okay, and before I talk about the amounts, our rates are lower than almost all the cities around us. And the amount by which they get lower is getting greater and greater because other cities are having to increase their rates. So our residents, I think there's sort of an absolute question, wait a minute, are our residents really getting whacked in comparison to nearby communities? The answer is they absolutely are not. That's good, doesn't make the pain any greater when they have to pay more. So any lesser, doesn't make the pain any lesser than when they have to pay more. So the thing is, we had okay, there's 3 different rates, but I'll just focus on, I think, water for a minute, a 3% or so rate increase scheduled in. Our staff is getting more than a 3% raise this year. In fact, double that. So our costs are going up much faster than we anticipated. And they don't come down the year after, they get raises for years following that. So this sort of snowballs, if you want. Now, hopefully, it's going to settle down to a more normal 2 to 3% range, which, knock wood, it seems to be heading in that direction. But we've had that 6% increase in costs. And here's what's worse. It's not just salaries that we pay for, it's construction costs. All the facilities that we have to renovate, and meet new requirements on, and the construction costs, folks, have gone up way more than 6%. So my point of view is there is no way this rate study is going to come in even at the levels we're at. It is absolutely going to come in higher. So rather than, you know, giving a benefit now to current residents that then a year from now, future residents have to foot the bill for, I think we have to pay our share. This plan, what we did was we took the original plan and all that was done was update it for new information on inflationary costs, and a few little tweaks because of project timing. Remember that that plan anticipates that our rates will not cover construction costs that are coming at us. So it's not true that our, as was said, it's not true that our utilities carrying debt right now, but it's planned that it's going to, because we simply can't raise the rates fast enough to cover these costs that are coming at us like a train, you know, coming 100 miles an hour. But look, we've got a lot of work to do. We can try and figure out, can we push some of those projects out? It's going to be very hard to manage this going forward. But right now, just covering those increased costs, moving to this 5% rate from a 3%, it just seems blatantly obvious to me that we have to do that if we're going to responsibly run the utilities. And so that's why I'm in favor of it. So sort of summarize, I think it's not just that we're missing some of the revenues we'd expected, it's that we know our costs have gone up pretty heavily. And this is a reasonable step in that direction, going from 3 to 5%. It's still less than inflation. So compared to other costs that have gone up, I think we've held this as reasonable as we can responsibly be. So I'm in favor of this as it's proposed.
Councillor Johnson and then Councillor Cotton.
Yeah, I'm still grumpy about the multifamily rate, but I accept that we're not looking at the individual numbers here to adjust them. So you can expect me to talk about that a lot when this comes back after the rate study, because I really want to get that under control. But I just also wanted to note for our residents who might be watching this, because this is such an important thing to our residents watching this. We had a very extensive discussion at our last council meeting, so I'd encourage you to go back and watch that discussion as well to get the full context for our discussion tonight. Yeah, just want to make sure that was clear.
Councillor Cotton.
Looking at the findings and recommendations where they actually kind of put out for the individual or the average residential monthly, the increases that are being talked about from the original to the modified for 2024 is a difference between, as we were saying, the 3 to 5%, $5 and $8 per month. And even as a person on a fixed, the citizen was who had been speaking to us earlier this evening, this is something, yes, it's much better to do it in smaller increments. I can handle that $8 a month if I need to, or a bit more, but it's definitely something that I would much prefer that versus a $50 increase if we try and hold off on doing it. So I also am in favor of it.
Thank you.
Much as it pains me to say that.
Councillor Christensen.
One other comment, and I do agree with the statements that have been made before me, but there is also an option too, if someone is a low income residential customer, to contact the city and seek a discount on that as well. So I'd encourage the public, to the extent that you feel that you may qualify for that, to look into that as an option.
Councillor Mayhew.
Yeah, I completely agree, and just amplify Councilmember Christensen's comments, please. We have those clauses in there intentionally to try and assist those folks. Please take advantage of that. It's how we intend to charge. So please take advantage of that. That's not charity. That is how we structured the rates intentionally. I just wanted to just clarify Councilmember Johnson's comments for those who may not be familiar with this. We've known in Snoqualmie actually through the last 2 or more rate study cycles that we had a a mismatch between the rates that we were charging commercial and the rates that we were charging multifamily. We've done a lot of work to try and rectify that, including in the last rate study, breaking commercial into two separate categories, because it turns out there's a very different impact to our costs of a low volume commercial versus a high volume commercial. So those we now are reflecting in the rates. And we've moved very intentionally to rectify the multifamily rates so that they're closer to the costs. And as Councilmember Johnson pointed out, there's an offset, or I think our speaker may have pointed out, there's an offset in commercial. But I just wanted to clarify, this is something the council's been very concerned with, and moving on for the last two rates, and I'm confident we will continue to move on that. It's not that we're somehow oblivious to this. We've been very intentional on making moves on this that are reasonable, and I think we still will, which is, I think, all Councilmember Johnson was saying, so he's going to keep his eye on that ball.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Johnson?
Just a slight addition to that is also my understanding was that past councils looked at, if we were to just instantly in the next rate study decide that we're going to completely balance things, that could be a shock to some of the businesses, and that could have some negative consequences. So kind of the past councils decided to kind of phase in that adjustment as well.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Right, so the utility, fiscal health, and rate study adjustment has passed. Second ordinance tonight is AB 23-136, Snoqualmie Valley School District Impact Fees for 2024. This is the second reading of ordinance 1283. Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, would you please read the summary in motion?
Trying to get to it. Have it up on the screen. Let me do it from there. Annual update to school impact fee for 2024 on behalf of the Snoqualmie School District number 410. We move down to the motion. As this is second reading of ordinance 1283, move to approve ordinance 1283, adopting Snoqualmie Valley School District school impact fees for 2024. May I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Christensen. Is there any public comment regarding this item? So please raise your hand in council chambers or online. I'm seeing that no one raising their hand. I do notice we do have Ryan Stokes from the school district online if you have any questions for him. Council, you have any discussions or questions? And this is our second reading. Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? So the motion passes and the Snoqualmie Valley School District impact fees for 2024 have passed. Right, move on to committee reports. Is there a committee report for Public Safety Committee?
No report.
Committee report for Community Development Committee?
No report.
Parks and Public Works Committee?
Nothing to report.
Right. So Finance Administration, we have AB 23-143 Teamsters Collective Bargaining Agreement. Mayor Pro Tem, please read the summary in motion.
The city of Snoqualmie recently completed negotiations with the public and professional and office clerical employees and drivers, Teamsters Local Union number 763. The resultant collective bargaining agreement, CBA, if approved by council, will last through the end of 2026 and apply retroactively to January 1, 2023. Move to approve the collective bargaining agreement between the public, professional, and office clerical employees and drivers, Teamsters Local number 763 in the city of Snoqualmie, and authorize the mayor to sign. May I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway and second by Councilor Mayhew. Is there any public comment regarding this item? If so, please raise your hand. Not seeing anyone online or in city council chambers. So, council, do you have any questions or discussion? Councilor Mayhew?
Yes, so I think the council's been aware of the primary points of this arrangement as it was being negotiated. I think, I would say thank you to our union, thank you to our staff for working with the city to come up with what is hopefully a arrangement that we all feel pretty good about. Thank you to city staff for all your hard work on this. I know this has been a long effort. So congratulations on the outcome of an agreement. My concern is not with the agreement, but with how we pay for the agreement, because we don't have the money. So I'm concerned that this agenda bill doesn't tell us how the heck we're going to pay for it, implying that we're just going to take it out of reserves, which I don't think would be good. I think we've got to decide how the heck we're going to pay for it. I'm uncomfortable voting for any spending authorization when we don't know how the heck we're going to pay for it. I don't think that's our job. I think if we're going to vote to pay for something, we have to have the ability to pay for it. So I believe that the next item, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the next item is a discussion of how we might pay for it. And there's an intention to come back in January with some budget amendments that would address how we're going to do that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right, so next item, actually, we will talk about revenue options, and then the third item will be Teamsters budget appropriation amendment discussion. So we will have that tonight. So you'll actually hear about revenue options and then the amendment.
Right.
For
So
this.
move to table further discussion of this agenda bill until after those two discussions that were just referred to.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councilor Mayhew, second by Councilor Benson, to move Teamsters collective bargaining agreement to after the discussions of revenue options and Teamsters budget appropriation amendment discussion. Any discussion, any comments regarding that? Councilor Watton?
Before I make judgment on this, I'd like to hear from our city attorney and to make sure that delaying our action does not have other consequences.
If it's simply moving the order of the consideration of the items on the agenda, that's certainly within the council's discretion. And if the council would like to have a discussion of the other two items before voting, then more power to you. So.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Any other comments? All those in favor of moving this item, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, so we are moving the item to below the Teamsters appropriation amendment discussion. So next item is revenue options. And we have our budget manager, Jenna Walker, who will do a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. Okay, here to discuss city revenues. Before we jump into it, I just want to give a little bit of the background and forecasts that will include council toolbox, revenues, and city comparisons. And then we will jump into some of the revenue options that are available to our city, both the general fund and then in the utilities funds. So this is a chart that you are all familiar with. The green line represents our revenues. The orange line represents our expenditures, and this is in the general fund, so the operating fund of our city with the less restricted revenues. And you can see that in 2025, we get really close. Revenues and expenditures are almost equal. And then in 2026, that's when our expenditures exceed our revenues. So the concern that we've heard with the CBA, with the Teamsters agreement, where are we going to get these ongoing revenues to match these ongoing expenses? It's a very real concern. It's always been a concern for our city because we are limited in how much we can grow property taxes, as we've discussed. They're capped at 1%, and there's no cap on our expenditure growth in terms of inflation. So what financial strategies do councils use to maintain a balanced budget over time? We really have three options. We can increase development, economic development. We can decrease levels of services. That means attacking the expenditure side, or we can raise taxes and fees. And this presentation really addresses the taxes and fees that are available as options for us.
Mayor.
Councilor Johnson?
Thank you. Quick question, if you go back a slide. In terms of economic development, if there's a vacancy, say on Railroad or on Center, and that got filled by a small retail business, my guess is that the revenue that we would get from that wouldn't be enough to balance the budget. So for economic development to actually make a significant impact, would that be like, we'd have to put in like a Fred Meyer or a Target or something like that? That would be the kind of development that we would need.
That would make a huge impact, certainly, but there are, shopping centers expanding our UGA, which I know has been looked at in the past and hasn't really been a possibility, but small.
Significant development.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mill site would that be considered significant development? Things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Mayhew?
Sorry, just as long as we've interrupted you, so I don't go back later. Can you just go back to, well, actually, yeah. You made the comment that we're limited to property tax increases of 1%. I just wanted to make sure, clarify, the council is limited on its own authority to 1% a year, actually often less than 1%, as in this year, the maximum we were allowed by state law to increase on our authority is actually less than 1%. However, it's true, is it not, that the citizens can vote to increase property taxes above that amount. It has to go to a vote of the citizens. Is that correct?
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, absolutely true.
Thanks.
Sorry, Mayor.
Councilor Johnson?
Another thing, just very much related to that. And if that were the case, that would move the green line up as a linear translation for those of you who know your algebra, but it wouldn't increase the slope of the green line. Is that correct?
Well, there are different options for raising the property tax. There's a multi-year option, which actually would increase the slope over a certain period of time, not eternally, but yes.
News to me.
Councilor Mayhew?
Yeah, sorry, just because we're over here asking each other the question, let's put it out. Go ahead, if you wouldn't mind going back to the slide with yes, that one. Just looking at that, the 2024, I understand that was the projection that we had when we adopted the budget, but that 2024 green, that the gap between the green and the red was assuming a substantial increase, about $750,000 in charges for goods and services. We were going to do a study of, I guess we were going to charge people to use the baseball fields or something. I don't know how it was ever 750, but that has largely not happened. Is that correct? So that green bump there is actually largely not happening for 2024. Is that right?
I don't believe that the increase was quite. Yes, there was a bump for a comprehensive fee study that has not been, okay, thank you, that has not yet taken place.
Yeah, I'm looking at.
So that's the exact number.
3.5.
Okay.
3.5 was going up to 4.2. 4.23, little under 3.5, so it's about 750. These are just numbers you handed to us at the last council session. So I'm not trying to ambush you. It's just, I'm just looking at them. So that was, and then that big increase then was a more moderate sort of increase, but there was a big bump in 24, but largely not, it just hasn't happened, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So what I'm worried about then is if that green line is really where the red line is for 2024, and now this bill causes the red line to go up 500,000, we'll actually be in the red this year by just looking at the numbers here and then adding 500,000, we'll be in the red, meaning recurring revenues will be less than recurring expenditures by about 500,000 is what I think I see here.
According to the budget, I haven't prepared that, but that could be accurate.
Okay.
And just to look at, you can see how reliant we are in the general fund on property taxes. It's a substantial portion of our revenues. It's that navy blue section, 16.9 million over the biennium. You can see we have a few other chunks. The green sales taxes accounts for about 15% of the revenue, utility taxes, 12%, and then charges for goods and services, 18%. The other smaller, I'm just going to skip over those ones. What does it mean? How does our revenue mix look when you compare us to some of our neighbors? That blue, again, is property taxes. And if you look at Issaquah, Carnation, and North Bend, they're much less reliant on property taxes than we are. Now, in a recession, we're probably sitting a little bit better than they are. In an inflationary time like we have right now, we're sitting a little bit worse. If we continue that forward, comparing to similar size cities, Woodinville, Lake Forest Park, and East Wenatchee, once again, you see that most cities aren't quite as reliant on property taxes as we are. The exception is Lake Forest Park, who has nearly the mix that we have. I'll talk about them a little bit later, but they've found one option that they're using. You can see that green section is their police department. They are getting about 1.5 million in revenues every year from traffic infraction cameras, which can also enhance public safety. So it's something to consider what other cities that are much like us are doing.
Nay.
And just a graphic representation of our expenditures are growing much faster than our property taxes. And you can see that black line is the percent of our expenditures in the general fund that are covered by property taxes. And that orange is the growth of our expenditures. So same concept, just shown in a different way. To discuss, the first revenue option deals with sales tax. So just a general overview of our sales tax. We currently are charging 8.9%. The majority of that goes to the state, and we get the blue portion. That dark blue portion is the general fund. It's 1%. And then those lighter blue are some restricted revenues. Right now, affordable housing sales tax is its own fund. And city transportation, that we put straight into our non-utility capital fund. And to see that graphically represented, Washington State sales tax gets the bulk of all the sales tax charged in our jurisdiction. That green is them. The blue is the portion that goes to our city. As you can see, it's less than 25% of the total. And then there's some other jurisdictions that get a portion of that too. So with all that said, this is one of the first revenue options. It's the transportation benefit district tax. We have a transportation benefit district in our community. We're already, Snoqualmie citizens voted in November of 2021 to approve a 0.2 transportation benefit district tax. And that is going to capital, as we just said. Approximately 600,000 is receipted into that every year. However, there is a 0.1% that is councilmanic, that is available to you. That means you could just vote on it and enact that 0.1%. This could be used for transportation improvements, which is what we're already doing, capital improvements. It could also be used for maintenance and operations according to the RCW. So that's something that we could potentially put in the general fund, or we could put it all in capital and determine that we maybe want to move less of our utility taxes out of capital and into operations. These are ongoing funds, so we could potentially use the general fund to help balance that future deficit that we'll be experiencing. If you were to enact that, it takes about 75 days for it to go live. If you approved it in April, then it could go live in July 1st.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, could I just ask two questions? One is, I'm remembering off the top of my head, well, let me not do it that way. Let me ask the question this way. Sales tax, a significant portion of sales tax is paid by non-residents of Snoqualmie, right? Those that visit our city and buy things here at a rate that is lower than almost all our surrounding communities, right? So when I go, I'm gonna get myself in trouble. When I go to that big box store down in Issaquah, I pay a higher rate than if I'd have bought it here, because they charge that 0.1%, right? So they're collecting that from me. That's not getting into our city, while we give a break to anyone that comes to our city to buy. Is that all a correct understanding of how that works?
Yes, correct, and an excellent point.
Okay, I
So we
think I
can take
managed to put
advantage.
both my questions in one, so thank you.
So if the city were to implement in 2024, this is if it were a whole year implementation, it would be approximately 310,000. It looks like we wouldn't be able to implement it until July 1st, so I would cut that in half. And we already discussed that this could go into different funds, and it must be renewed every 10 years.
Yeah, just to Councilman Mayhew's point, and not really to refute it, but to bolster it, there's the whole idea of the Laffer curve where, you know, you put the tax rates at a certain level to maximize revenue. I don't think an amount of this size, an increase in this size, would diminish the use of Snoqualmie for purchases anywhere close to the revenue that it would create. So it's not it wouldn't be a deterrent to purchases in Snoqualmie if nobody's going, well, we're not going to Snoqualmie after all. Their taxes just went up 0.1%, and it's not a.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, completely agree. And that's why I made that point that they're actually paying those rates in their towns. We're the outlier. So just coming up to the same level surrounding towns are already charging isn't going to cause them to, sort of shy away from us, or wouldn't make common sense wouldn't tell you that would happen. Yeah, I agree.
Councilor Johnson.
Also, a thought about how a sales tax is a flat tax for all residents, regardless of what types of income they have. So fixed income folks, I believe, would pay the same amount as everyone else. Increased cost to them.
True, but not everything's taxable.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So food, for instance, is not taxable.
Yes.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, just make the quick point on that is it's not really a flat tax, but it has aspects of what was just described. Generally, those at lower incomes, okay, this tops out at a certain income level, but generally those at lower incomes buy less than those with higher incomes. Now, then you have to sort of try, and then as the mayor pointed out, groceries are not taxed. They're exempt from sales tax, which is where, as your income level decreases, a larger and larger percentage is on groceries, which are not sales tax. So there is some benefit. So it's not really a flat tax, but it still does, it's not a perfectly progressive tax either. It's a sort of, somewhere in between.
So why does it take 75 days to implement?
That's just MRSC. We have to give our ordinance to them, and that's how long it takes to get it through whatever DOR steps need to happen.
So you gave the example like April and then June. So obviously if we did went earlier, then we would see.
If we were to do one by January 17th, which I don't know if we can achieve, because I think it is an ordinance, then it could be implemented in April.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, just to that point, I'm just wondering if we did something in January, does this tax require, well, I assume we do it anyway, but does this tax require a public hearing? Sorry, I sort of ambushed you with that one, but.
I believe so, but I'd have to double check.
Right. So.
We won't want even if it wasn't required, so.
Yeah, we'd probably won't regardless. So, but, ordinances can be in unusual circumstances, but can be done in one reading if somehow January 17th versus end of January was going to make a difference. Is that correct?
Yeah, the 2 reading requirement is just part of your council rules. You can always waive that for a particular item.
All right, so we could find out more about timing if we wanted to move more quickly, right? And
Yes.
you could let us know. Okay.
And just a heads up, if we were to increase that timing, it would represent about $75,000 for the 3 months, based on the numbers I've given you.
Yeah, instead of half the 300, it'd be 3/4 of the 300. Yeah, yeah. No, here he comes.
Director of Finance, Boutte.
What took you so
Yeah,
long?
I just, well.
Are we
yeah,
paying you
out of
tonight?
respect, I want to give you guys some a little bit of patience, So in essence, I just want to answer the timing question for the most part. I was, beforehand trying to look this up because I figured it was going to be a question. So in essence, for the primary election in August of this year, we'd have to have a submission to King County by May the 3rd. If we wanted to go with the February special election, we'd have to have a submission to King County in 4 days, basically.
So this is
To
the
have a
property tax.
resolution.
You're talking about the property
Sales
tax.
tax.
This is
That was
not this one.
Councilman.
Council Manic, right?
You're ahead.
Oh, yes, I am. Sorry. Okay, so this is voted sales tax.
Newly
Okay.
Newly confirmed.
Jumping the gun. Come back. All right.
Like the back one.
That's why.
I know why the finance director always sits.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
So Google's a great thing. Snoqualmie 8.9%, North Bend is 9%, Duval is 8.9%, Fall City is 8.7%, Carnation is 8.7%, Issaquah is 10.1% sales tax overall. At the big boys, Redmond is 10.1%, Seattle is 10.25%. No way do I say we ought to go do whatever Seattle's doing. And Bellevue is 10.1%. So yeah, we're in the low margin compared to take out the big boys, but compared to comparables, we're in the mix, but probably a little bit lower than average.
Okay, so what does it mean if you were to enact this for a restaurant bill of $150? That would be an increase of 15 cents. For $1,000 online purchase, that would be an increase of $1. The difference is that this is all going to Snoqualmie instead of the chunk that the state gets and other departments. So I'd like to discuss the license fee at the same time. The current voted TBD tax of 0.2% repealed a $40 license fee, which is revenue for non-utility capital. There is a councilmanic portion. You could do a non-voted up to $50 vehicle license fee, voted up to $100 vehicle license fee. This would be paid solely by residents, unlike the sales tax, who own vehicles.
and construction, maintenance, and operation costs are all eligible uses. There are various increases of revenue. If it were a $10 per vehicle, it would be about $100,000. If that were increased to $50, it would be $500,000. So there's another revenue source, but just keep in mind that the voted tax, part of that approval, citizens were aware of the repeal of the $40 tax.
Can this be applied anywhere or just was capital projects, but is it transportation only?
I think it is for transportation only, but when they say maintenance and operation costs, there are transportation costs that are within the general fund. So there is a component that could be used within it.
Councilor Mayhew?
Yeah, just remind council members that when this went to the voters, which was very recently, the argument against said, oh, watch out, this city. What they'll do is they'll get us to vote for this. And as soon as it's in, they'll start increasing it. And the response was, no, that's not what we're going to do. And that was truthful. We had no intention, but we didn't promise it never would, but we certainly said it created the impression that well, we certainly said it wasn't planned for and certainly created the impression it wouldn't happen anytime soon. So I'd encourage you to go back and look at the pro and con statements and look at the newspaper articles and look at basically the community discussion around this. I'd be very cautious. I think there are a lot of people who will feel potentially that they were
duped.
Yeah, I was trying not to say that. Yes.
Councilor Watton?
Being the second of three proponents for the sales tax, that was the one attractive thing, is taking this burden off of residents and placing more of it on the visitors. And I will continue to advocate for looking at sales tax as the optimal way of helping to encourage tourism while making sure that our residents are not burdened by tourists.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
Just history. So when TBD first came around, it was for streets only. That was expanded to include streets and sidewalks. Some municipalities have expanded that to include streets, sidewalks, and trails. The total extent of what is transportation, I don't believe has really been litigated to definition. So just word of caution, if you're going to use that to, clean the restrooms, it's probably out of bounds.
Okay.
Like it dessert before.
No, I just. What I heard was sales tax encourages tourism. And yeah, I need a dessert. I might need a dessert fork for that. Okay. And a knife.
So the next component of the sales tax is the public safety sales tax. It's a maximum 0.1%, and 1/3 of it must be used for criminal justice and or fire protection. The remaining 2/3 can be used for any lawful government purpose. However, it must be in accordance with the purpose specified in the ballot measure. As that implies, this is required by a vote, a simple majority of voters at a primary or general election, not a February or an April special election. If the city were to implement, the revenue in 2024 would be approximately $264,000. And the reason that's lower than the transportation sales tax is because the city must share 15% of these revenues with King County. 15%.
Always got to wet their beak. Here he goes.
In the last 5 years, just so, oh, go ahead, sorry.
That's right, you.
So, Mr. Linehan, another question. You're probably not going to know off the top of your head, but I know that councils struggle with finding any way and often can't find a way to put choices in front of voters, meaning, do you like A or do you like B? You just generally can't do that. But I just wanted to check, is it possible conceptually to end up with something on a ballot that says, well, here's a tax that you could vote for, but it won't take effect if this other tax gets passed, so that you in essence give them a choice? Is that a thing that's possible, or is that just really, you just got to pick what you're going to put in front of the voters?
I don't think that would be possible if the contingency was the passage of some other ballot measure. If it was contingent on something that was a definitive yes or no, yes, perhaps. But I don't think if it was contingent on a simultaneous vote.
And that's why we don't see that kind of thing, because it just doesn't work. Okay, so we would have, if for any of these that go in front of the voters, we'd have to pick which to put in front of them. Is that a correct understanding?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And just by the way, a public hearing would only be required to increase a property tax, not a sales tax. So FYI, one of the weird little nuances in your state laws.
Councillor Watton?
Following that reason, this is a question for legal counsel. Can you have a Prop 1 and a Prop 2 on the same ballot? One may be, I don't know, a sales tax increase for public safety. The other one, a property tax increase for general fund.
As long as you're comfortable with them both passing or both failing.
I think having two of them would get them in the mood.
Councillor Benson?
For what?
Councillor Johnson?
The concern being that you could have, 50% of the voters say, yeah, I want this one, 50% say, no, I want that one, and then neither one passes. That'd be the risk of having two.
And then final point on this, generally, these have a lot of public support. In the last 5 years, 89% of them, of the public safety sales tax measures, have passed in Washington state. So next on to business and occupation taxes, B&O taxes. These are payable quarterly. Businesses pay these on their gross receipts. However, anything less than $5,000 is exempt from the tax, so it falls more heavily on large businesses. The exemption does not apply to utilities, however. There is a potential expansion. Currently, our B&O tax is only on gross receipts. We could expand that to a head tax or a square footage tax, and that would impact maybe large businesses that don't sell much within the city, but that have a large presence in the city. Currently, our retail sales rate is 0.15%. The maximum tax rate without voter approval is 0.2%. So that is a councilmanic increase that could be done. Utilities, gas, electricity, and cable are already at their 6% maximum. And then
Councillor Benson, sorry.
So a head tax, that's a per employee tax. So a tax that overtly discourages hiring people. I'm not sure that would necessarily have the effect that we're hoping for with increasing revenue.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
Okay, but you do have primarily the what you might call service industries, where they may have the classical one is Microsoft. Redmond started this trend. You have an employer who has a large employment base, but is not actually selling anything within your jurisdiction. You still have to provide all the police, fire, whatever to them as being in your city. So one mechanism to get them to pay their fair share is you do a head tax in lieu of a sales or B&O tax for sales they don't really do inside your city. A lot of their business is done online. It gets executed wherever the order is generated from. That's some of the history on those.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, just a question, the $246,000 estimate that, sorry, $246,471 estimate, a very precise estimate. How many cents? No, I'm kidding. The my question is, did you calculate that assuming a square footage or head tax, or did you calculate that just assuming a revenue based tax as we currently do?
Just based on that 0.05% increase.
Got it. Thank you. So that number, so the second bullet point there is not a feature of the 246,000. You're just pointing out that amount, if you did it differently, could potentially be higher. But at our current method, just going with what's permissible, we could raise 246,471.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
And I would recommend also looking at either the employee head tax or square footage tax, because we do have several large employers that basically don't pay hardly any B&O tax, right? And so you could get based on space. And I think North Bend actually has the square footage tax. And no other cities as well have the head tax. So that is an option. But Councilor Vincent?
In an earlier slide, you had the what it would cost for the 0.1% tax on $1,000. What's the proposed, or the what would a head tax look like to an employer with, say, 10 employees?
I don't have an answer for that.
Is it because you just haven't had a chance to figure it out, or is it because the head tax would have to be determined?
Both. I think both. Yeah, I can look that up for you and maybe say what an average business pays in B&O too, so that I would assume that we would want something similar, so that somebody of a similar size and revenue amount would be paying similar amounts, but we really haven't looked into that specifics.
Councilor Watton?
Having been a business advocacy person working that angle, if you want to get businesses thinking a city is less than business friendly, focus on the B&O taxes and a head tax. Redmond has had the head tax. I've heard from business owners and managers how excruciating that is. And I'm very leery more participation from the businesses that employ people that pay the other taxes, and keep in mind they're paying $750,000 currently through our B&O tax. So I would not be in favor of that angle.
But if they're not shipping anything, or if they're shipping out and we're not getting any B&O tax, there should be some type of equivalent. If there's others that are paying quite a bit of B&O tax, I think we should figure out how we can even the playing field. Again, that could be a square foot tax or something, but we can take more look at it. Councilor Benson?
But different businesses pay different rates on different things, and different levels of tax in different jurisdiction, and that's part and parcel to doing different businesses, isn't it?
It is. When you have a very large company that pays maybe $0 or maybe $34 a year in B&O tax, I would state maybe they need to increase it. And we have other companies that are paying quite a bit more. Councilor Johnson?
I would wonder if we could have sort of like a minimum, if the business is 20,000 square feet, I just made that up off the top of my head. Then the square footage thing kicks in, but if they're much smaller, then it doesn't. Is that an option? So
Right.
If there's a business that had a lot of square footage, but they didn't really do a lot of business in the city, selling things from the city, et cetera, so not paying a lot of B&O tax, but they have a big space and they have a lot of economic activity. That then the square footage thing would kick in, but only at that certain size.
Councilmember Christensen.
Yeah, I think that this is, especially this portion of it, is a conversation that I'd be willing to continue discussing, but it would be helpful to know how specifically these would affect the existing businesses we have so that we don't accidentally go and just drive a number of them out of business without realizing where our actions left us with the unintended consequences. So if there was some way to figure that, know what folks are paying now and to see what kind of an impact these different options would have, I think it would help at least me form an educated opinion on it.
I agree. Councilmember Mayhew.
Yeah, so I'm just so glad and even proud to be up on this dais with you guys right now. This is the conversation we have to have, and we're having it. I think we're not going to resolve it tonight because we have a lot of questions. In my opinion, darn fine questions. But we got to get through this, and we haven't much time. So I think we need to hear the rest of the presentation. I think there may be a few other items, but I think what I would like to see us do tonight is commit to how we're going to get a decision on how we're going to move forward. And that may mean getting to votes on things. It may mean, getting to some meeting of the minds, some combination of those things. But I think we have to do it very quickly, because every month that goes by, these numbers, and then, you miss this and whoops, you just lost 3 months or 6 months. So, or you missed a chance to go to the voters on a ballot. And we have to factor in that we're going to need to engage with our community in a pretty big way, explaining why the heck are we doing any of this. And it's, as we heard tonight from one of our residents who said, you know what, it hurts when you raise utility bills. Tax increases hurt, and it's not, unfortunately, everyone in the country believes that as assessed values go up, tax receipts to the government go up. And in 49 of 50 states, that's true, but not in this state. So people don't know that. And so their natural reaction is, what the heck? What's the problem? You guys are spending and spending. The answer is no, it doesn't work. So there's a lot of education, a lot of communication that's to happen. So we have to figure out which way we want to go. And I'm curious, maybe the mayor has a comment, but maybe not. But we have to figure out how we're going to do this. Are we looking to administration to do this for us and present us something? Or are we planning to get, in which case, guys, that means when they come to us, we can't sort of beat the heck out of it and then do it ourselves anyway. If we're going to do it, which I think we will and therefore must, we're going to have to plan some meetings to do this. Whether that's in December or whether it fills up our January, we don't have much time. So I'd like to see us tonight.
6 is open, I know that.
The 26th of December. Yes, that's right. Councilmember Benson has been pushing for that particular meeting date for a while. But let's commit to this. It's not going to happen in one meeting either. It's going to take several. We must commit to getting this done. So if we can leave tonight, so I just, maybe we hear the rest of this, but maybe not spend time talking about the specifics anymore tonight because it's too big a meeting. It's too big a discussion for tonight. Let's note the questions we want, maybe tell them so they can get data that we want. But other than that, if we could commit to when we're going to tackle this and come up with answers on this, I think I think we must decide that tonight. So that's what I'm hoping will come out of this discussion.
I just want to add that the city is currently working towards an audit and enforcement on current rates. SMC allows a 4-year look back period or a 10-year look back period for special circumstances. So that should hopefully increase our B&O revenues, that we begin collecting things that maybe we've been missed in the past, that have been missed in the past. And just so that you understand the number, 2024 And B&O taxes will be about 739,000. And we do not currently know how much we're missing. There's also a portion of B&O that relates to city utilities and solid waste. Currently, those are taxed at 9%. There is no maximum tax rate without voter approval. I've heard some cities have upwards of 20%, sounds like a lot, but there are options. So if we were to increase utility rates by 1%, we would see a nearly $100,000 increase for city utilities, 25,000 for solid waste. If there were a 3% increase, it would be 283,000, and then a $77,000 increase for solid waste.
Councilor Mayhew?
Quick question. So this sheet, the budget sheet, am I correct that our forecasts assume the rates that prior to us raising them tonight? So when we raise those rates by 1 or 2%, some of the impact that that is presented on the screen is we've actually already caused to happen earlier tonight. Is that correct?
So by utilities going up, you have increased the revenues, utility tax revenue on that.
Right.
But that is a separate thing from these numbers.
The tax won't just, as the total rates paid goes up, the tax amount on those doesn't also go up? It doesn't stay
Yes,
at a
okay.
fixed percentage?
Correct. Yes.
Utility tax.
Will go up. These numbers though are only if we were to raise the actual utility
the rate.
tax. So if we were to
Sorry. Okay.
tax
Got it. Thank you.
water 10% rather than 9%.
Got it.
Does that have to be voted?
No, I believe that's Council Manic. Yeah, maximum tax. Yeah, Council Manic increases. So on to property tax. This slide is something you've all just passed. $76,000 increase gets our total regular levy to 8.6 million. And that is as much as we can increase it without a voted increase, which would be, there are a couple options. There's the levy lid lift, which allows cities to exceed that 1% annual levy lid. It does require voter approval with a simple majority and no minimum turnout requirements. In the ballot measure, we would have to specify our purposes and then use it in accordance to that. So unrestricted, so long as we specify in the ballot. You can exempt senior citizens and people with disabilities, and there are both a single year option and a multi-year option. And it's really tricky to understand the impact of a levy lid lift. So this chart explains it better than any words could. The green is the levy lid lift, much more than this standard 1%. And then after you have the big step up, there's 1% increases again until the levy cliff, at which point it will revert to the path it was on before we had the levy lid lift. That is a single year temporary levy lid lift. So the single year, even though it looks like it's over 5 years, the single year is this year. That first year it steps up. There's a single year permanent levy lid lift where you see that big step up with the green and then 1% increases for thereon.
Single year permanent.
Don't you love it?
Then there is the multi-year temporary levy lid lift. There's another one too.
You're just making them up now.
So this one you can see it doesn't increase by that little 1%. It increases by the same amount every year for multiple years, at which point there is again a levy cliff and it reverts to where it would have been had there been no levy lid lift. And then our final is the multi-year permanent, where we have these first 5 years where there's a big step each year, and then the 1% going forward. And then you just have to consider that you can never exceed the statutory maximum levy rate per $1,000 assessed value. And just for your information, I think our maximum statutory would be revenues of about 15.8 million, and we're currently at 8.6 million. So we're not really close to our statutory maximum at this point. There is also an excess levy. Generally, an excess levy supports a general obligation bond, although there is an operations and maintenance excess levy, which is usually 1 year for a short-term project or one-time expenses. This one does have minimum voter turnout requirements, and it requires 60% approval from voters. These are preferred when we're going out for a bond because it guarantees that a certain amount will be paid to support the bond, making those revenues making those bond payments a little bit more secure to people who would be willing to invest in our city. A more stable revenue stream. There we go. And then utility rates. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. There's a utility rate study underway. You just passed an increase to those rates. That is also that supports the utilities. Full rate study to be completed early in 2024. We have some underutilized revenue right now as
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, maybe you could just go back. So just to be clear, though, if you go back one slide, so that this chart, which has to do with general operating funds, utility rates would not impact this, correct? That we keep utility rates solely in our utility, correct?
we do receipt utility taxes into the general
So it
fund.
increased the taxes on those rates. Rates themselves
Correct.
stay in the utility,
Stay in
can't
the
help with
utilities.
this.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Currently, as Councilmember Mayhew mentioned, we are working toward a fee structure, which it's for updates. These are all the fees that we charge in the city, whether you're building a home or renting a park or licensing your dog. There are all kinds of fees that haven't really been looked at in a long time. So that is a goal that we have. Impact fees have been collected in the past for new development, but they could be updated and expanded to include traffic, surface water, and parks impacts. There are restrictions on how these are spent. It's not a general fund revenue source. It would be more for impact. Say the Snoqualmie Parkway, we expect a new development and there's going to be a lot of impacts on that road. It would go towards perhaps refurbishing, resurfacing that. We also have an admissions tax of 5% admission on events. However, we really don't receipt anything due to that admissions tax because the majority of the events in the city are not for profit, which is exempted. So that's something we could look at if we want to draw in other festivals or things not for profit, that is a potential option. And then just some alternative revenue sources that we haven't really used, ongoing sources, the traffic safety cameras that I mentioned have been successful in Lake Forest Park. They are sort of at a crossroads of many cities, which Snoqualmie is not, but we still have areas that could potentially be safer and work to increase the revenues for the city. There is a potential for an axle fee. We could require trucks that drive down Snoqualmie Parkway to license themselves with our city. There is leasing of current city assets, expansion of UGA, a tourist promotion area fees, although that would have to be done in cooperation with another jurisdiction. And then there are also some one-time sources like naming rights, and the expansion of UGA kind of fits under both of those umbrellas.
Councilor Benson?
Would an actual fee actually be allowed? I thought we had to say that we wouldn't do that as part of getting the funds for Parkway. Am I remembering that wrong?
No, I think we committed that we wouldn't
Prohibit,
we wouldn't
trucks from
prohibit
going-
trucks.
but not that but we could charge them through the nose.
Well, I guess down the road, if if it does, if the jurisdiction transfer doesn't go through, we need to do what we need to do, right? Because now everything comes out of our city's pocket or residents' pocket.
Okay.
Councilor Mayhew?
I just want to reiterate the mayor's point is really important. So we lobbied our state legislators for about 3 years that culminated in us getting the money for the Parkway, which was an appropriation, just so that folks realize that never happens. It was a very unusual set of circumstances, including us having a very senior senator who was in the room during the negotiations where they reconcile the House and the Senate appropriation bills, who put that in for us. That's a thing that just doesn't happen. We certainly shouldn't expect it will happen again. These are just things that don't happen. So, but in the discussions that led up to us receiving the support from our 3 state legislators on this, there was a lot of discussion. Mayor's absolutely right. There was no commitment, but there was an understanding that if the state funded this, which, by the way, the concept is all those truckers pay a heck of a lot of money in taxes. They just don't pay them to us. They pay them to the state. So that's why that happened. But the understanding was we wouldn't impede the use of the parkway. But the other part of that understanding was that the state would then take on that responsibility into the future. This is the point the mayor was just making, is that that's now a question. So if they don't take it on, then we probably need to relook at allowing all of that cost, because just do the math. It's not 14,000 households, as someone said earlier, it's 3,500 households.
Right.
It's 14,000 residents, but 3,500 households, take 5 million. The math number, you have to repave that thing every 8 years, let's say. It's a huge number. Where the heck are we going to come up with that number when our residents aren't causing it? Okay, so I don't want to digress, but to answer the question, we agreed not to impede the traffic on the parkway as long as they paid for which they did. The state paid for the resurfacing, and they took on the responsibility going forward, which is up in the air. So there is, we probably don't want to get ahead of that, but that's still an open question.
Councillor Johnson.
I'm sorry, I don't know what naming rights are. Who's naming what?
If there were a pool to be built and we named it the Joe Johnson, yes.
Yeah.
He's already got Johnson Falls.
Oh, that's
so,
right.
Yeah.
I'm
How
already
much did he
kidding.
pay for that?
Yeah, how much did you pay for that?
Okay, thank you.
That's the end.
I just have 11 more
Councillor
questions.
Martin.
I'd like to go back to the Mayhew slide,
Uh-huh.
which is the crossing revenue slide, if we may.
Has he paid the naming rights for that?
It's honorary tonight for him. There we go. So my calculation, if we do the transportation benefit district of 0.1, which gets us 300,000, and the public safety, which we put to the voters for 264,000, that's slightly about 600,000. How far does that move us out in the future on the graph?
Where would the lines cross instead?
Yeah.
Well, I do want to say that this chart does not include the Teamsters agreement that has not been confirmed yet. So
Grain of salt.
That eats all of it.
right. So how far? Maybe to 2025 or 26 again, if we just did one of them, and maybe a little bit more if we did the both.
Okay.
Councillor Mayhew.
So you're welcome to this if you like, but it crosses, if you do those two things you said, we get through 2024 and we cross in 2025. So that gets us a year, but we've got to go farther, and don't forget there are other unions. So I think personally that kind of thinking is really good thinking. How do we get through the short term? And then, but also what's the longer term and what's our plan? And so I really think that's the meetings this council needs to have in the very near future of really getting through that and how we put a set together of things that will work.
Councillor Johnson.
If we were to go to the voters, where could we get the most revenue? Seems to me that it would be the levy lid lift, but
There's certainly more revenue in the levy lid lift.
The sales tax has advantages, though, that it doesn't just fall on citizens.
Mhm.
So there's pluses and minuses to each.
But just as far as like the dollar amount, is the levy lift where we would get the most or could?
I would say yes. There, I mean, like I said, the maximum that you could raise taxes to the statutory limit is 15.8. We're at 8.6. So you could get 7 million there. Is that feasible and
Right.
possible? No, but there's the biggest revenue chunk that's possible.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
Just doing the sales tax also escalates with inflation. It keeps pace. Where you do real estate tax, it's the 1% or and the math doesn't work out eventually, and you've got to go for a levy lift. Do we have a copy of this?
I emailed it out.
Thank you.
Councilor Mayhew.
So I think we can end this conversation by agreeing to have the meetings, if you guys are agreeing with me, but we got to decide when we're going to do it. If we,
Good for you.
tomorrow's good. So tomorrow's good. December 26th is not good for me, as it turns out. But yeah, happy to participate in, some of these sessions if you want in December. Honestly, I'm a retired guy. I'll turn up whenever you guys can be available. If it's in January, then I no longer help to you as a voting person, but anyway, but please, you've got to decide tonight, and it's not one meeting, it's probably a couple or 3 meetings to get through this. You can always cancel if you are faster.
We'd be happy to look at the schedule for January and start setting up some sessions. We have their hand up. Councilor Watton.
I'm curious because Director Boutte had the answer on what we need to do in order to get things onto the general election.
With 4 days. Well, yeah, so we can go back to the non-voted sales tax if you want to start there with the TBD, transportation sales tax. So in essence, we would have to, in order to get it through DOR by April the 1st, we'd have to have them notified by January the 16th. Okay, if we were to go for a public safety sales tax, which is indeed voted, for the most part, the earliest date that you could submit to King County at this point would be May the 3rd, which would then go on to the primary election for August, which we would then notify DOR by August or October the 18th, and the sales tax would be implemented January 1st of 2025.
Jeez.
So I believe these dates are also, in terms of submitting to King County, similar for, say, the property tax as well. So likely that would be imposed upon the next tax year. So it would be likely in place for 2025 by the time we get there.
Councilor Watton.
Would the speaker yield to a series of questions?
Of course.
To the chair. So we have time in January and February to deliberate as a council, to notice, and that's also to the legal counsel, so that we need to make public notice probably for public statements in February before we take final action, or late Feb or early February.
It'll depend on what the nature of the tax is.
Okay.
So we would have to have a submission of a resolution to King County by at least May the 3rd. I believe the process of identifying people that are pro or con against that would take place after that date.
Okay.
City Administrator.
That's it.
Chambers.
So I propose that we bring back for the first meeting in January, the 0.1% calcimic for your consideration, which would make that January 16th. And then we work through F&A in January and February to nail down the by the May date, what action you want to take.
Right, and we could call it.
Councilor-
Sorry.
Councilor Mayhew.
So here's my point of view on this, folks. You'll remember 5 months ago, I gave you guys the analogy of Wayne Gretzky, why he was the greatest hockey player. And I said, you skate to where the puck's gonna be. It was in regard to this decision. I said, please, we've got to get ahead of this and decide on these taxes. 5 months ago, I said that. These union negotiations were completed in October. It's right in the agenda bill. For the entire month of November, when we were looking at the mid-biennium budget review, we knew these numbers. They were not presented to this council. Okay? We're putting it off and we're putting it off. Since I've been on council, I have had a rule that I follow. I will not vote for spending unless the way to fund that spending is also being passed at the same time. Now, for tonight, I'm willing to vote a different way because there's an issue with our Teamsters contract, which is it's retroactive. This current contract actually expired at the end of 22. So this agreement involves a whole bunch of payments for work in 23, including some to folks that aren't employees anymore. Causing them to sort of get their pay straddled over another year creates a whole burden on our staff. Because of that, if I see that we've committed to getting this done, I'm willing to vote for the spending, trusting that you guys are going to get this revenue done. But proposals that talk about February and March and April, I can tell you I will not vote for the spending if you guys aren't serious about getting this done in December or January. So that's one guy's point of view on the vote on the Teamsters.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilor Cotton.
I know I'm a new member here to all this, but I have to agree with Councilmember Mayhew about getting ahead of the spending and such. So I also am retired and available anytime. So, hey, if we have meetings this week, next week, you know, that we can hammer some things out preliminarily, I'm up for it too.
Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, I think that we do have some committee meetings that were canceled on Monday and Tuesday next week. And I'll be around. We could have a meeting next week on Monday or Tuesday. Not sure I could commit to both, but and also we do have the option, I believe, of roundtables before our council meetings in January, and perhaps this is of some urgency.
It's true. The first council meeting is January 8th, so we could schedule a roundtable for that. Councilor Rotten.
Just want to remind the council that you don't go into negotiations over labor contracts with raising revenues first and then deciding and negotiating with labor unions post that. So just be a little bit cautious of moving too quickly. And that we're not foregoing our responsibility to the taxpayers. We're doing what normally occurs. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And please correct me if I'm misstating or overstating or underestimating our position as being responsible with the taxpayers' money.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, I agree with the point that you don't try to fund an agreement before you've made it. That's but I would also have the point of view that what we've done, I don't believe is normal, which is you do take a budget, plan for what you think, you estimate what you think you're going to spend, and then you figure out how to fund it. So we're maybe somewhere in between, in my opinion. But look, here's my point of view. we're not going to get this done in one meeting. So I'm going to make a motion, which I think maybe moves us on a path, which is that we have a meeting next week. I'm going to pick a day, but someone could move to make it a different day. And it's just a special meeting to discuss, no action to be taken, to discuss revenue sources further and attempt to kind of hone in on which of these options we want, with understanding that then in January, you'll all take it up in a roundtable and sort of move to fruition. But we'll have committed to the January timeframe, and we'll have something next week. So I move that we call a special meeting to discuss revenue sources, no action to be taken for next Tuesday evening at 6 p.m.
Seconded.
Second.
So it's been moved by Councilor Mayhew and second by Councilor Johnson to have a meeting December 19th. You know, if we look at staff, that doesn't really work for the staff, but so. Councilor Mayhew?
Yeah, so I think to that point, we don't want to, staff's made plans, the holidays are approaching. I think we work with the slides that we've been given, the information we've given, go as far as we can with that. And then that's that meeting. But we've hashed out what we have to hash out in terms of, hey, we like that one, we don't like that one, we've got these questions. But we've done a significant part of our part, which is policy making, that then can get played out in January when staff's back at work and you guys can take it up at roundtables and future council meetings. But we're on a path to so I agree with Mayor's concern. This has to be primarily us with the information we have.
Again, you're going to rely on staff. You don't have the staff. So we'd be happy to start meeting, January 2nd or 3rd regarding this, or even the 4th, because we do have council committees on the 2nd and 3rd. So we could do the evening the 4th possibly. Councilor Watton?
I'm going to respectfully vote no, because I have to take my staff out for a holiday dinner that evening in a local Snoqualmie restaurant. So.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
I took the plans as presented. I'm unavailable on that Monday and Tuesday. And be aware, you're also down a council member. Well, you'll have Jim, but Councilman Washington can't officially participate till he's sworn in. Right now, we're planning as quick as possible to get him sworn in on the 3rd.
Right.
I'm not saying you guys don't meet, but if you want to, but I can't be there.
Councilor Mayhew?
So I'm also available Wednesday and Thursday of next week. If you guys want to move it to the 2nd, then someone amend the motion and pick the 2nd. Just pick a date. Stop. We can't just keep somewhere in the future.
I think the sooner is better, and however many councilmen participate in the meeting, perhaps questions that need to be asked and some potential proposals. Obviously, we're not making any decisions, but to generate the kinds of direction that we need for city staff to take, then I think I don't think it needs to be a perfect attendance kind of thing in order for us to be productive.
Councilor Johnson?
Move to amend the motion to January 2nd.
Second.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Johnson and second by Councilor Watton to amend the motion to January 2nd, which is the
Tuesday.
Right.
But isn't January 1st
Holiday. So then you have
so your Monday
public
meetings are going to be on
safety,
Tuesday, and your
CD.
Tuesday meetings are going to be on Wednesday that week.
So you could take it up in F&A and then we could have a meeting on the 4th, which is Thursday. as well as you can do a special workshop starting at 6 o'clock on January 8th.
Would probably need to be both.
Is that?
I was just saying it would likely need to be both then.
So
Get it done as
why don't-
quickly as
why don't we-
possible.
It's do the first part of take it up in FNA, but also let's have a roundtable on the 4th, starting
Yeah.
a special meeting. Let's have a thingy on the 4th, starting at 6.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Johnson to have discussion at FNA on the 3rd, and then have a special meeting starting at 6 PM on the 4th of January regarding revenues. Any discussion regarding those? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, thank you. It's a good plan. Right,
Point of order.
yes.
I think
Councilmember
we
Mayhew?
just voted to change the date, but we haven't yet voted to actually have the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Little
So-
dinosaur, big dinosaur, I think.
right, so all in favor of having the meeting regarding revenues?
Aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Okay, so it passes. Great. So next item then is Teamsters Budget Appropriation Amendment discussion.
I think we just had that.
So it kind of all falls into that, right? Okay, so then let's, Councilor Bayhu,
Call the question
Wait a minute, which
What are
one?
we
I
voting
got
on?
to which question yet?
on the Teamsters. I thought we just went back to the
Oh.
Teamsters. item.
So
Not yet.
actually-
She was talking
Discussion.
appropriation change.
Sorry,
appropriation
Now
I
we're
amendment.
withdraw
back to
that
the
comment.
Teamster.
Sorry.
So- Okay, so this we've kind of already covered in revenue options. And we go to AB 23-143 Teamsters Bargaining Agreement. And I heard the question was already called, but probably need to read it in.
No, it was withdrawn.
Now you can call your question. though.
Yeah.
No, but you guys know the point, so let's just
It's just-
let her.
let's
let her
go
just-
vote.
Let her
I guess
handle
we've
it.
already read it in and we did the motion and I actually asked for public comment and then at that point it had already been
Yeah.
moved. So any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Right, Teamsters contract, like bargaining agreement passes. So excellent. It is a very good contract for both parties. So thank you. Okay, next item. Any further report for FNA?
No further report.
Okay. Next item is the mayor's report. Just a couple of things going on. So Carmichael's Hardware and Variety Store. So we know that wonderful store in downtown historic Snoqualmie won the John D. Spellman Award for exemplary achievement in historic preservation. And was presented to the owners of Wendy Thomas and Brian Woolsey, who have owned it for 22 years. So this business is also one of the oldest continuous businesses in the valley. And it was founded in 1902 as the Renning Brothers store. It burned down and then was actually built in that place in 1907. So they've been great caretakers of this business. Let's see. So the public invited, so you're invited to participate in the Parks and Open Space Master Plan. There's still online surveys. If you haven't had a chance, please provide your input. As we stated earlier, the council meeting committees and commissions are canceled for the remainder of the year. Council, I have a letter that is on the dais waiting for signatures. I sent this out last week for your review, and this is a request to King County Council, actually to Council Member Sarah Perry, asking her to work with council to increase the grant amount. So Snoqualmie Valley, or the Skyview Metro Parks District had a $4 million grant. And because they did not pass the bond recently, that this will need to be turned back in. And our request is let's keep that funding in the Snoqualmie Valley so that we have a pool for all our residents and for our children. So if you have any questions about it, please ask. Councilor Mayhew?
Yeah, Mayor, I wonder, I'm aware that Councilmember Perry has already sent a letter to the city informing us that that's not possible, in fact, would be illegal. Could you share that letter that was sent to the city so that council members are informed before they decide whether to sign this letter or not?
I have not seen a letter from Councilmember Perry saying it's informal or illegal.
Is it okay for me to provide that letter to the council?
If you have a letter.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a simple ask. Please increase our grant. We do that in other instances, and we did that recently with the Snoqualmie Parkway, where we actually requested additional funding for certain parts that were not going to be covered, and then they covered it. So it is a normal thing to do. Yes, Councilor Johnson.
I'd also just ask the city attorney just look into it to see if the specific way in which it's requested is just get his opinion. You don't have to have one right now, but that'd be helpful too, to kind of get that perspective.
Great. Okay, I think that's everything. We also have the director reports. I'll provide an update real quick on that.
Sure, Chair, moment, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
I motion to, at this stage, table the rest of the reports and proceed to executive session. It's already 9:30 at night. We can get those reports. We've got some of them here. We get those reports offline and get those. I would just like, let's move to executive session. May I have a second?
All right. Been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Christensen to move to executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Right, ayes have it. So tonight we have two executive sessions pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss the legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency, lasting approximately
You said 30 for both?
30 minutes total.
Combined.
30 minutes. Okay. Those attending include City Attorney David Linehan and City Administrator Mike Chambliss. And Chief Brian Lynch. So we'll take a 5-minute recess and reconvene.
Point of order, Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry,
Councilmember
before you
Mayor.
recess. Just a point of information, actually. Our council rules of procedure require that we end the meeting by 10 o'clock unless we move to extend it. Are we permitted to make that extension while in executive session, or would we have to do that in open session?
You can extend that. The mayor can notify the clerk the extension of the executive of the meeting. If you want to pre-authorize it, you can, but
No, that wasn't my question. Our council rules require that the council meeting end by 10 o'clock. So I'm questioning that requirement, not the rules over the executive session. And I'm wondering if we were to need to do that, can we do that in executive session, or would that have to be done in open session?
I would suggest you do it now, either waive that council rule if you know you're going to be going over 10 o'clock. That would be the simplest thing.
Councilor Watton.
Point of information well taken, because it says in our rules that it's at 9:30, the council can request an extension beyond 10 o'clock, which you're doing.
Great. Councilor Mayhew.
Move to extend the ending time of the meeting. Doesn't mean we have to go till then, but move to extend the ending time of the meeting until 10:30.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Mayhew, second by Councilor Johnson to extend the meeting until 10:30 at the latest.
The meeting required ending time. So it could be earlier.
Right. At the latest.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
I,
Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Can I vote Matt? Matt?
Is that a yes or no?
Aye.
Okay, so all ayes except for Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, who voted nay. So there may be possible action would be taken following the executive session, so we will come back into session and adjourn from there. Right, so we upstairs. Councilor Mayhew,
move to adjourn.
Seconded.
moved by Councilor Mayhew, second by Councilor Benson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? If you're adjourned.